Peace to the saints. We are here with an interview, and this one I think will be particularly interesting. You have Marquett Davon Burton as the interviewer. I'm in my journalist bag today. I'm not going to be debating. I'm going to try to understand. I'll ask tough questions, and I'm going to yield the floor for the gentlemen to introduce themselves.
Hi, Marquett. Thanks for having us, man. It's an honor and a privilege. My name's Forrest.
My name is Jackson, and we go by FroJax.
Yeah, that's what we're known as together. Individually, I'm a music producer, so I go by Hurting Murphy on Instagram, Spotify, all that stuff. He goes by Jackson Price, but together we're sort of like a joint unit, so we go by FroJax on our third page as well.
Okay. And are you guys actually brothers?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What are the ages?
I'm older, but I'm 30. He's 27.
27. Yep.
30, 27. That's pretty good. Okay, neat. And I originally reached out to Forrest. I saw a clip and I thought it was pretty interesting. You seem reasonably intelligent. And I wanted to engage you because I observe that there's an emerging movement among young white men. Frankly, I don't like the leaders in it. I think that they could be better is what I'm saying. Like, I expect more of the white man. And so I want to understand this movement and the players in it, and in as much as possible, talk to some of the early stars in the movement. And hopefully we can push it in the right direction, because I think that if we're going to be in the same country, it'll matter for all of us. Mm-hmm. So first off, what would you call this movement of the whites?
Go ahead.
I'd call it like a new renaissance. You know, at the risk of going too deep into world history, I would say that post-World War II, because, you know, you had Germany, which was the last example of white people really collectivizing. There's been this sort of cultural pressure for white people to become untethered from their heritage and their identity. And I think that has been suppressed for a very long time, and the pressure has been building up. But there have been a number of catalysts that have been pushing white people to sort of reassume their role. And we're sort of going through this transformative time where we're looking for new leadership, we're looking for new voices. And I think that white people are sort of coming back into their heritage and coming back into their identity. And I think that's going to encompass not just the political realm, but also musically, culturally, even film. And I think that my brother and I are sort of like a manifestation of that renaissance.
It did cut out for us.
Damn.
Oh boy. That was a good start, though. You did great.
Hear or see them.
It cut out for a minute. I don't know if that was us or not.
The chat has indicated that the guests have frozen that.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're kind of low budget over here.
Can you hear us
That's
now?
all right. That's okay. No, we heard most of what you said, and I appreciate the fact that you've thought it out at some level. And this stuff is, of course, very interesting to me in as much as here in the hells of North America, you know, my lot, my family's lot, and our future is thrown in with yours, like whether we want it to be or not. So and I got a ton of questions for you guys, and I want folks to know they may say something that I may or may not agree with, and that's not the point of this discussion, is for me to agree or to interrogate or investigate, but rather for us all to understand. So when you were elaborating on that, the first thing that came to my mind is, because I have a lot of European friends, and often the white Europeans are saying, well, what are the white Americans talking about? Like they're not even anything. Like they're not Swedish, they're not Latvian, they're not German. They're like mutts. So how can they talk about their heritage? They're just like mixed up. Like they're not even really European in any, you see what I'm saying?
Well, yeah.
What's your response to that?
Well, what I would say, there's a couple of different, and that's the thing, just like on any right wing, because this is right wing politics, right? Anything on the right wing is very fractionated because it's a bunch of disagreeable men saying, no, this is the right way. This is the right way. No, this is the right way. There's a variety of different things that I've seen, from like the full-blown neo-Nazis, people that are more hateful, more violent, more separatist, all the way to sort of like a right-wing pan-European, like all Europeans should meld together in a melting pot in the United States. Ultimately, that is a good point, because I'm not German in the same way that someone is, you know, who's raised in Germany. But
Sure.
My ancestry is white Anglo-Saxon with Celtic admixture. There's like a particular sort of genetic makeup there that constitutes who like started this country. And it is a melting pot
Mind
in
you,
a sense.
I do want to let everyone know I will be interrupting them during the live stream, most times on purpose, sometimes just because of a possible lag. So I want to let you guys know I'll be interrupting you, not to be rude, but either to ask you to elaborate on something, which is to say add details, or in other cases to illuminate, meaning to clarify so that we all understand. So for example, you speak to your blood heritage. Did you take a DNA test?
So I want to, because I would like to know, and I have deep interest in the genealogy and the specific percentages of here, there, and the other. I am hesitant, just like intuitively to do that. I don't want my DNA in some laboratory somewhere, but I did trace my heritage back manually to the best of my ability. I mean, I'm not a professional, but my father's mother, she actually did her ancestry. I helped her do it. I had it in my email. So she's like 97% Northern and Western
Your
European.
father's mother, which is to say your grandmother.
Correct.
Which would be 1/4 of your lineage.
Correct. And then his father, I traced that patrilineal lineage all the way back to Kent, England.
So are you ever going
1560.
to actually do your own?
Well, that's the thing. If there's a way that I can do it manually without needing like a genetic test.
I think the answer is no. I think the answer is no on that one. The only reason I say that is because often when folks take these DNA tests, they're shocked at the results. For example, I know a young lady who's quite fair skinned. And so we both took them, and I told her, like, I think you have a lot of Caucasoid in you. I think it's going to come back at least 14%. She's very, very fair. So we both took it, and shockingly, I had more than she had, which, genetics are funny in that way, which I should have known because I like to take over things. But the point is that I think you should take a DNA test before you get too serious about this stuff.
Maybe, and maybe I will, but that's sort of the thing, right? When we talk about identity, this is an identitarian movement, right? So I understand that,
It'll resolve.
we need to upgrade.
Yeah, we will. Just give it a sec. It'll resolve itself.
Are we back?
You're back now.
Yeah, okay. I'll have to lose my train of thought periodically. So I think that so when we say the term white, you would agree that exists in the same way that I would agree the term black exists, but it's not like your genetics is the same as every other foundation.
You're not talking about the term, you're talking about the biological reality. So you're asking me if I believe that race is a biological reality as opposed to a social construct.
No, I'm not
Yes.
asking you that. I know that you would agree
Okay.
with that. I've seen a lot of your
Okay,
content. I
cool,
know
yeah.
that you would agree in the reality of race. I'm just saying white and black are sort of descriptive terms rather than
Categories, yeah, sure.
rather than adhering to the actual genetics. So someone who's like Irish versus someone who's like Spanish, you could consider them both white in some sort of broad term. So when I say the term white, right, I think that you would admit that whiteness exists in the same way that I would admit blackness exists. And that you make a fair point that, oh, well, if I'm 88%, Northwestern European, but 12% Spanish, am I as white as a 100%, Norwegian person or something like that? But that kind of speaks to the arbitrary nature of the term whiteness, which I don't think we have fully fleshed out. I mean, there's people who wouldn't
I
even
think the
consider Nick
problem with the
Fuentes
term,
white.
like for example, you have Nick Fuentes, right, who is
Yeah.
part Mexican.
Mm-hmm.
Would I consider a Mexican a white person? No, not at all. I think that's a ludicrous concept.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if I were European, I'd probably be offended. Not in that there's anything wrong with Mexicans. I quite like Mexicans and Mexican food. But European and Mexican are radically different, and certainly there's a lot more mixture.
Yes.
So someone like him, I would consider a mongrel. Would you consider Nick Fuentes a mongrel or a white person?
I don't. So I would say I'm not really interested in defending his whiteness, but he's, from my understanding, a quarter Mexican, which would make him like an eighth native. So from what I understand,
Yeah,
he's
that's
about
more than I
80% European and then 20% or 17% native. But in terms of like the white identity, I mean, there's some people that totally reject him, and there's some people that accept him. I would say there's like the concept of like honorary Aryan, which is kind of a tongue-in-cheek sort of term.
No, that's crazy. No, so what I want to know is about, like, for you guys, are you guys a part of a greater, like, movement that has an identification of what white is, or are you more so like we're kind of figuring our way through this?
It hasn't found its way yet. That's
define
exactly
that?
right. Yeah, it hasn't found its way.
We're just kind of doing our thing. It alludes back to what I was saying previously about white people reestablishing their identity after having been untethered for so long. And I think throughout the course of this transformative time where white people aren't 100% certain of what their identity is, we have all these sorts of arbitrary lines about what is considered a white person categorically. It's going to take time for us to fully flush that out. And we're going to have conversations about, like, what is a Mexican person? What is an Italian person? You know, and there's levels to it. There's different subcategories. But I think that we're in the midst of us sort of figuring it out for ourselves right now. And it's very interesting.
Agree. Shout out to Constantine, comes in by Venmo. He writes, tuition, I appreciate you. And anyone who has comments or questions, they can use the information below. I do want to let everyone know in the live chat that if you have some questions for these gentlemen and you want to ask it yourself, send in your $20 and then send your email address, and I'll reply to your email with the link to join on. I'll let you ask these guys a question yourself. You just don't curse or use slurs. I've already had a conversation with the gentleman asking them not to do such. I think this is a fantastic conversation to have. Now, we're going to get off of the definition of white peace, even though it's absolutely critical. And it's critical because in all movements, you have to have identity, meaning who are we? Like, for example, if I wanted to create like a black movement, which I don't, it'd be challenging in as much as I know that my ethnic group, which is to say the foundational Black American, has been poisoned, our blood's been poisoned by you people. So if we wanted to say like, oh, it's a one drop rule. Like if you have one drop of white, you're out. We're all out then. You know, there's not enough purity in the Black DNA. I surmise in your DNA as well, there's not enough purity. And for sure in a guy like Nick, his DNA certainly doesn't have the purity. And you guys know in the South in the United States, there used to be a one drop rule. If you have a drop of colored blood, you're colored. So by that rule, American rule, Nick would be considered colored as opposed to white. And that's like your heritage. Would you guys stick with that as an idea?
I wouldn't stick with that as an idea. I mean, based off of how you're explaining the one drop rule, I would say that makes sense. But I wouldn't say that we have such a rigid, strict parameter for how we define what a white person is. I think there's some flexibility there. And I would also say that there are people who some people would argue aren't pure-blooded white, you know, or whatever, but they are still doing
American whites.
Yeah, but they're still doing things that would be considered contributions to white advocacy in a sort of, roundabout way. I would consider them as having earned their place in the movement. So
well, I have a question for you.
You're saying if they're like a supporter or if they're actually white phenotypically?
It could be either. I mean, you have someone like Gypsy Crusader, who a lot of people wouldn't consider him a white person, but some people would say, I mean, he's doing things as contributions to white advocacy. What's his race? Well, I mean, it's in the name. He kind of looks like a Romanian gypsy kind of person.
He's Romani and part Mexican, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so the Mexican part took me out again. The Mexicans are getting into everybody.
Look, is he white? No,
busy.
He's not white. I get it.
Well, Romanians are Europeans.
Romani, not Romanian.
Oh, it's my mistake. My mistake.
Okay, all right.
Can I ask you a question? I know that you're interviewing us. Do you mind if I ask you?
Sure,
I was just curious because
I might hide behind I'm a journalist.
Yeah, no, that's okay. But you said you might surmise that we don't have pure blood. I'm curious to know why you would guess that. Maybe because I look kind of like a Chechnyan. People say that all the time. But
even if you were in Europe, which I go to Europe a lot, so I can place people quite well. Like for example, I remember when I was at the Rolls Royce dealership, I was like, "You're Albanian," and this guy was like, "Oh my God, how do you know? Who are you? My friend sent you." It's like, no, I travel that much. So when I look at each of you, I don't see a particular country jump out. You on the right, I would actually place you farther to the east in Europe, as opposed to you on the left. Yeah, you. I'm sorry, I don't know how you guys are appearing.
Yeah, I got that Chechnyan Slavic kind of vibe.
Right. Which I would still consider to be European. Certainly, the National Socialists would not accept you. But that's why I'm asking in terms of like, how do we define?
But hold on, because I want to understand though, because is a German white to you?
A German is German, so that's the important piece. Like, if you actually are in Europe and you're talking to the Germans about the French, they view the French as a different thing. not in the same way a Californian views a Texan as a different thing.
I understand,
A Californian and Texan are like,
but
we're
you
both
use the
in the
term
same
white,
nation.
so the word white must mean something. So like, what does that mean to you?
Categorically, it means you're both of the Caucasoid variety.
Right.
However, for anyone who believes himself to be like of purer blood because they're like generationally German, they don't ever say I'm white. They would never say that. Like,
Yeah,
there are
it's an
people who
American
live their
term.
entire life and they've never said I'm white. They've only said I'm German.
Yeah, it's
or
an
I'm
American term.
Prussian.
I accept that as unique.
But that's because the
rest
blood
of
is
Europe.
mixed. It's American, right? It's not American because of anything other than the fact that the blood is so mixed. Not that you might not be white. You might be white, but you could be German.
Yeah,
and
English and
French
German.
and English. Yeah, all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we're English and German. I think white, categorically, like you said, would be a more American thing. You can say that's
Yeah.
because we're impure, but I mean, again, if you consider white to be part of the Caucasoid, one of the three, then we are that. So we're not purely from Germany or purely from England. We're from both. Our ancestors are, but categorically, I would consider myself white.
There's distinctions between
Me too.
there's distinctions between race and nationality, but there's also distinctions between clusters of nationality. So in Europe, for example, you have countries like France, Germany, the Nordic countries, Great Britain. Those would be
Right.
considered like the Germanic people. Then you have Italy, that's more Mediterranean. Then you have the Slavic people. So there's distinctions between race and nationality, but you can be a cluster of a certain amount of nationalities, but still be considered part of that cluster. So for example, according to like our own research, we've seen that we are German, English, a little bit of Finnish, I think too.
I'm telling you, I cannot accept your
Yeah.
research because there's no legitimacy to it.
I mean, there's the spiritual aspect and there's the temperamental aspect too. I mean, I'd say we both present as Germanic, and our temperament is also in alignment with that as well. So
My Germanic radar, I might give it to. Well, what are your heights?
I'm 6'4", he's 6'5".
No, you got 6'4" and 6'5".
He's got a
Very
stronger
European
jaw,
of
I'll give you that. But
Very European of you. That's a beautiful thing. Now, your buddy Nick Fuentes, I think 5'6" or something, like more like on the you're not from Europe side.
we don't know.
We never met Nick Fuentes. I don't know who that.
Yeah. So I think that categorically the white concept makes sense in terms of like, okay, if you phenotypically are white. Now, you mentioned that they're kind of like the allies that are pushing the movement.
Yes.
What do you think of these people? Are they useful idiots? Are they tools? Are they?
That's a good
who are these
question.
people?
That's a good question. I'm not interested in using people or exploiting people as useful idiots. I think these are people who just have intuitions about pushing things along culturally in a certain direction, but they have different methods about how they go about it, you know? And I'm not going to always agree with how these people go about their methods, but I do think it's possible that they are contributing to the overall resurgence of a new ethos. And I think a big part of that resurgence is going to be white advocacy, absolutely. So, but it's kind of like a loose conglomerate of what we call nodes. You have musicians like my brother and I, you have Nick Fuentes, who's a political commentator, you have different people who take a more militant, aggressive approach that I don't necessarily agree with, but overall, we're all kind of recognizing collectively that we're moving in a different direction, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Let me acknowledge some of the folks sending in items. Shout out to Caleb. He writes, tuition, this conversation seems like it will be informative. Oh, absolutely. And what I really like, I like being at the beginning of things. I think that we're really at the beginning of a new racial and racist movement in America. And I think that's kind of fun. Probably dangerous, but also quite fun. Shout out to Travis. He writes, looking super player in the Two-Face suit. I appreciate you. Super villain time. Okay, so I believe that there's levels to things, right? There's levels to blackness, and we're talking about America here. We're not talking about Europe or Africa. We're talking about America.
Right.
There's levels to blackness. There's levels to whiteness. Now, some of the levels get comical and or dangerous. And when I say that there's levels to blackness, like there are some black folks who think that certain words or, grammatical formulations in African American vernacular, they think that is the correct way to speak. They're just so deeply embedded in Black American culture. And then there's varieties. There's different types of blacks, different types of whites. For you guys, under an ideal circumstance, if you could wave a wand in America and make some of the blacks disappear or all of the blacks disappear, what would the wand wave do?
Well, if I could wave a wand, everyone would just get along and we would have a perfect multicultural society. Because that's the one thing that people always ask when people have like race consciousness, which I think you have, is that, oh, it must come from a place of disdain or hatred or something like that. If it was up to me and I was the king of the world, I would make sure everybody just got along, because I enjoy talking to people like you, or people, I enjoy driving down the street and getting Mexican fruit from the lady who sells Mexican fruit. But the reality is that's not what happens, because when we have a multicultural society, we don't have equivalent representation from the top down. And I think ultimately that's the biggest issue, is representational.
I'm going to cut you just because I did get your answer. So your true answer is, if you could wave the wand and get the ideal and do whatever you want, you said you just have everybody get along.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a magic wand. Yeah, sure.
And remind us of your name.
My name is Jackson.
Jackson. Okay, Jackson. Yeah, I know that is a white name. I know a lot of white Jacksons.
If I had to wave a magical wand, which I think, hypotheticals are a little bit unrealistic at times, but if I'm playing along, I would say that each type of people would be free to pursue their own destiny. I don't think that black people are supposed to be here. I think that black people were brought to America against their will. I think that that's a legitimate grievance that they have. I think ideally, if I could wave a magical wand, every type of person would be free to pursue their own racial consciousness, their own destiny. And I think it's all this racial tension and all these geopolitics.
Let me challenge you here as a journalist. So
Sure.
Black people have this phrase, I don't know if you heard of it, but they say, you're talking, but you ain't saying it. And that's one of the things I like about black people, is they're really good at making things plain. And I think in part maybe it's because of the history of being systematically denied education. They had to make things plain and simple. But for you, if you're waving the magic wand and it's up to Jackson, what is Jackson going to do? Because I got Forrest's answer. He said, I'll have everyone get along. Stay where you are. Just everyone needs to behave in fill in the blank manner. For you, what is it?
Well, I was in the middle of answering the question, but if I could wave a magical wand, I would leave people to just pursue their own destiny instead of mixing people together. I don't think it works.
Okay, so I'll tell you what I understand of your answer, and then we'll perhaps get into the elaboration.
Sure.
So you said you'll leave people to pursue their own destiny, which sounds like you're allowing them to make their own choices.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess to elaborate, if we're talking
And then
about...
on the other hand, you said you don't believe...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, basically it assumes the notion that, look, black people are here under a system that maybe they don't resonate with, white people are in power. That's sort of like the general perception. I'm saying that black people, or anybody who doesn't want to be here or who isn't, happy in the country of America, if I could wave a wand, I would have them go back to their homeland and be happy and sovereign. Sovereign is the key word. Sovereign over their own minds and bodies, where they don't feel beholden to some group of people they don't like, where they can just pursue what they want to pursue. I think that would be the ideal situation.
So say you have a Mexican here who was born in the United States.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of complaints. What would you do with them?
Is this like the magic wand thing again, or
Yeah.
what do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean by complaints?
You ever hear people say, when Trump was running for office in his first term, if Trump gets elected, I'm moving to Canada? Did you
Yeah.
hear that? Yeah, I heard that from people of all colors. So let's say the person's like, if Trump gets elected, I'm moving to Canada. What would you do with this Mexican person?
If he said that?
If that was their general attitude.
If that was their general
and
attitude, what would
political
we do with him?
Like, okay, you
Not,
mean
not we, because your answers seem to be different
you mean
than
just one-
Jackson's.
you
and
mean
I
just
I
one
think
person?
Jackson is being...
I want to clarify my answer more too, but yeah.
do you mean just like one Mexican guy and I wave a wand and it's kind of a weird
No, it's not
scenario.
weird at all, actually. It's very straightforward. These questions that are hypotheticals are being used to get at your value set and how you make decisions. So get a sense of like what you believe and how you make decisions if you had ultimate power. Not that you can necessarily do these things. I mean, all things are possible, but that's what it's being used for. For example, if you take a course, even if you study for the bar, you don't even have to go, or how about this, study for the LSAT? You'll deal with a lot of hypotheticals, right? They use that to explore logic. So that's what we're doing. We're exploring logic.
I agree with that, but I guess with the wand thing, just to clarify, are we talking
Yes.
like a magic wand where I have a momentary, like I can shift time, space, and change the trajectory of everything that happened leading up to where we're at, and just snap of the fingers, all of the conditions with their context are now different?
So,
or what am
I'll
I,
give you-
in practical application, doing with the different races of people as a response
Perhaps I'll answer the question, and I'll
Okay.
tell you my assumed pieces, and then you can kind of riff off of that if it makes it more clear.
to the... Okay.
So say you ask me, Marquett, if you have a magic wand and you can do whatever you want in the United States from a racial standpoint, what would you do? So if I had a magic wand, I would probably change the immigration policy so that we only skim the cream off of the crop of the whole planet Earth. So we would invite everyone from the whole planet Earth, if they're sophisticated engineers, if they're high-level surgeons, if they're innovators in the medical field, you can come. You have to abide by our value set, kind of like what Henry Ford would do to enculturate his employees, like a formal enculturation of what it is to be American, which is not a racial thing, it is a value set. And some of these things have always been aspirational. We never quite got there. Then with regards to the people who are here from a racial standpoint, I believe that there are different types of folks. Like, for example, whites in my, I don't want to say neighborhood because everyone has such large plots of land that it's not quite a neighborhood. But in my general area, I'm in Southern Georgia. If you're black or white and you see somebody driving down the road, they're going to wave at you. Whether the person driving is white or black, they're going to wave at you because we're Southern. Mm-hmm. So I would make sure that anyone who had strong racial biases was gone. I don't even really care where I send them. They just can't be here. The number one identity has to be America as a nationality, and you have to be wholly signed on to the values. People who don't speak the language, I'd give them 2 years to master it. If you didn't master it, you probably have an IQ below 85. You gotta go. So I'd flush the toilets on the rest of the world and deport the people who have low IQs and can't master the language. Then I would keep all of the people who are highly skilled and sign on to American cultures and value set. I would then close off the border largely to immigration, and then I would try to increase birth rate significantly. And it doesn't particularly matter to me who's giving birth. There are some racial groups I think are a bit unattractive. I'm not gonna name them, at least I'm gonna try not to name which ones. But there's three countries that are kind of ugly, and I just don't really want them procreating, but everyone else, have at it. That's what I would do.
Okay, but you don't need a magic wand for that. That's why I gave you kind of the woo-woo answer. Because if you're asking like in practical application, a lot of that I would agree with. I would say if I was like king of the United States, I would deploy the National Guard and I would have them go door to door, house to house, and anybody who is here illegally, you gotta go. I don't know if that's 50 million people. I don't know if that's 20.
We got that underway right now. Like that one's on the way. See. Okay, what else?
We'll see. I mean, I think that's a great place to start. I would probably repeal the 19th Amendment because I don't believe women should be...
and here's...
Oh, no.
We lost him again.
Sorry, this is good. This is good.
To come back online.
Sorry, we're back. We're back.
Mr. Okay, all right.
Repeal the 19th Amendment. Okay, go ahead.
One second. Shout out to Mr. Robinson. He writes, supporting the work. May I also acknowledge, that's the only person supporting. You guys need to support this good work. It's not every day we get some white men on here that are willing to speak truthfully in the cause of the whites. This is rare. You need to honor these men. But anyways, tell everyone about this amendment.
The 19th Amendment. I don't want women voting. I just don't think women, and again, I'm not a Muslim. I'm not anti.
You are a Muslim. You are a Muslim from Chechnya.
Yeah. I'm not anti-woman. I don't think it's in their best interest to have a primary role in any cultural conversation or in any like political capacity. I don't think they need to be silent all the time and they need to wear duct tape and we need to beat them or anything like that. But I do believe that I have a traditional...
Just most of the time.
Just most of the time, they should probably not talk. Even though they talk about
Let's
twice
talk about
as much as men.
woman beating real quick, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So I read your last job application. It's one of your hobbies. And with regards to domestic violence, for example, do you believe that if a woman is married to a man within his home, should she be able to call the police for domestic violence?
Probably.
Okay. What about you, Jackson?
That's an interesting question.
It is an interesting
That's a really
question.
interesting question.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if a dude has a woman chained to the bathtub and he's beating her with a switch 24/7, it's like, there's like a a level of humanity that we're missing.
I
there.
think, I guess back to the magic wand thing and trying to answer the question you just asked, we should reinforce having a culture of competent men where women don't feel like they have to step outside of their marriage to have some sort of authoritative figure come in and interfere on their relationship with their husband. That's the best way I could answer that question. I think it's more of a cultural problem.
Are you planning to run for office at some point, Jackson?
No, I'm an artist. I don't want to be in politics.
Okay.
He totally
Because I'm going to
could,
need you
though.
to be more of a math brain, because my feeling has been your answers have not been sharp. And I don't
Okay.
think it's for lack of IQ, because your opening was very sharp. I thought you were very well spoken, but I feel like you've not been quite answering these questions.
Well,
I
it's
feel like
not.
you've been Gavin Newsom out here.
No. It's not. It's not a matter of like trying to be media trained. It's just I feel like it's more nuanced than a black and white sort of answer. I think it requires flushing it out more with some of these questions.
So let's say we're talking law, right?
Okay.
And the challenge with law is that law has to be black and white. The paper is white, the ink is black.
Yeah.
And in as much as that's the case, you have to be able to set a stake in the ground so that we can operate around it.
Of course. Yep.
And so if your idea is, yes, they should be able to call the police, a wife can call her police on her husband, I believe that's fine, yes. You can explain or not explain, or no, I don't think she should be able to call the police on her husband. You can elaborate or not elaborate, but which side do you fall on?
I mean, in the current time, based off of our current culture, I would say, yeah, if a woman is being domestically abused, then she should be allowed to call the police. Yeah. If she's in physical danger, then of course, yeah.
Okay.
I would
Fair
say
enough.
so.
What about you?
Real quick before we go to me, since I'm not really here, I'm just.
Oh, right, you're a
I'm just
journalist, right,
question.
right.
Yes, I'm
Yep.
just a journalist here. Would you reiterate your answer?
I said, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I can. It doesn't take the observation of genius to notice that some domestic situations call for intervention. Probably not most, but like I've seen some stuff. So yeah.
The only reason that I ask is because we talk about women's suffrage and ending it. The immediate assumption is that the woman is under the complete leadership of her husband and he's her representative. And in as much as he's her representative, he never called the police on himself. So he's doing the voting on behalf of the household, on behalf of the children and the woman. So he's the representative. So he interfaces with the government, right? The vote, that's interfacing with the government. There's various ways in which you do that. And so I would just think like, okay, well then he's just the primary contact point. And that's because the woman may be irrational and or unreliable. Mm-hmm. And as much as we can assume she's not rational enough to vote, like, is she rational enough to use the police services in a way that is appropriate?
You could say the same thing about kids, though. Like, can a kid call the cops on somebody? Yeah, I think so. I understand your point.
Oh, I have no points. Just clarification.
That's right.
I have
That's right.
no
That's right.
points here. I am barely here.
Right.
Okay, very good. I appreciate that.
You're just
point.
interviewing the white supremacist Nick Fuentes.
Whites. We got the whites here.
If I could wave a magic wand, they would all just go away. Oh.
No, I like the whites, but I only like certain types of whites. And it's increasing. The type of whites I like are a shrinking percentage of whites. We're talking in America. The Europeans are a whole different thing. So, like, for example, I noticed that you have gauges and tattoos. These are not the kind of whites I prefer. I like my whites clean cut, no tattoos, with normal, predictable names. Sarah, Tyler, very vanilla.
Yeah, well, I like mine in the kitchen cooking for me.
Yeah,
I like my
yeah.
blacks in the field.
So tell me this. With regards to your tattoos, like, what kind of tattoos do you have?
It's just like sacred geometry kind of stuff. It goes all the way up to like the left side of my chest.
So these are not tribal tattoos; they're more so mathematical representations of.
I mean, they're not, it's not that, I went in there. It's a really good artist. I said, hey, draw me some dope stuff. We went over some stuff, and I said, put it on me. I'm an artist, so I like cool stuff. It's not really a super deep meaning.
Sure.
My daughter's middle name is tatted on my knuckles. That's the only one that has any actual meaning. But it's not that deep. I just like cool designs. It's really it.
You have one kid.
Yeah.
with a black woman?
No, it's not a black woman.
You don't have to lie. Okay, very good.
She's
and,
Jewish.
Tell us about the gauges.
Full Jewish. Oh, sorry. What about them?
That was crazy. I said, tell me about the gauges.
I did it when I was 15, and I just kept it.
Okay.
Same thing.
Right.
It's the same thing. I temperamentally, I'm very open. I score very high on openness. So I'm not the traditional conservative, right? I'm interested in ideas and people and art and body modification. I've sort of toned it down over the years as I've gotten older. But temperamentally, I'm not a hard right-wing fire and brimstone kind of guy, you know?
But you do consider yourself on the right and conservative.
Yeah, I would say largely.
Okay. Now, you're an interesting character in as much as that's the case. I think the American right has been very watered down, and it's always had some challenges. Like if I was a white guy, I'd probably just be like, yeah, I'm on the right, I'm a conservative. Mm-hmm. But with the increased number of challenges and being black, I'm like, I can't even sign on to it.
Well, we make hip hop too, so like people reject.
I heard
us all
some of
the
it.
time.
In fact, I don't know if any of it was AI, but I actually thought it was. I think I heard like a chorus. I thought it was comical. And
Zero AI. Marquett, okay. I assure you, we do not support AI.
Okay.
We've been doing this for a long time.
No, I actually.
But
thought
thank
it was,
you.
It was really good. No,
thank
really
you.
good.
What did you hear?
And, it was it involved a slur, so I can't.
Oh, okay, the wang half. Cool.
But I thought it was good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jackson.
Yep.
What about you? Do you have any tattoos or gauges or piercings we need to know
I
about?
have my ears have been pierced before, but I don't have any earrings in right now. But I don't have any.
He's clean cut.
Yeah, I don't have any body.
So he is running for office. Okay,
No.
Yes.
I don't have any body.
Hey, don't forget about me.
I don't have any body modification or anything like that. I'm pretty.
No BBL.
Yeah.
Okay, and you said no tattoos either.
Nope.
Okay, awesome. Very interesting. You know, I'm always and you guys both have the same mother and father.
Yep.
Sometimes you got to get that tested though. Like the mothers, it's 1 out of 3 paternity tests come back.
That's true.
As what's going on.
And what's the racial majority of the 1 out of 3? Is it mostly white people that come back wrong?
No, it's not broken down by race. And we could talk about that.
I know it's not broken down. I'm saying, is there a racial demographic that skews the overall 33%?
In America, I don't know, but what I do know is, and I try to speak to the facts that I do know, just in case someone's like, "Well, what study did you get that from?"
I was just joking, but yeah.
What I do understand is that it's 1/3 of the people who choose to do the paternity test, which does not mean that it's not a greater number.
Because they have suspicions already.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes
it could be
perfect sense.
higher, it could be lower. Now, you mentioned one interesting thing that I find to be a bit disturbing. In terms of false paternity, we had the top 2 in the top 5. 2 of the countries are essentially black countries, and one thing that is of racial concern to me is promiscuity. And I think that both the white woman and the black woman in America are both promiscuous, but I think that they execute it in different ways.
Yes.
So I think they're both slurs, but they're different kinds of slurs.
I agree.
Tell me more.
Well, I am a product of modernity, so I'm not speaking from a position of authority or as if I'm like a sanctimonious person. I'm a single father. I'm an ex-drug addict. I'm incredibly imperfect. But I do believe that I represent as my archetype the average white American man for that reason, so I can kind of speak to people not from the top down. But in recent times, I've not rejected women in any complete sense, but
Yeah, we have.
well, I'm celibate. I'm currently celibate. I'm a single father. I'm celibate. I'm not dating. I'm not doing any of that. I don't watch pornography. We've sort of rejected the modern.
In fact, the word, but carry on.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Say again.
I said the P word. We have to also forego that one. I apologize.
Pornography. I know that because I've watched
the
videos. Pornography.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yes.
I don't watch any explicit material unless it's against my will on Twitter or something.
Because against my will.
Yeah, yes. But I think that you're right. I think that the one man, one woman model is actually most replicable and efficient across cultures, across time.
So one man, one woman?
Maybe one man, more than one woman. You could argue that, but I would say that.
All right, we're talking now.
Yeah, I
Come
know,
on, white
I
man.
know. But I do think that you're right in terms of promiscuity, both men and women, because there's this whole like the red pill. I'm as red pilled on women as any other right wing guy, but the whole like anti-woman, like really ultimately it comes down to force doctrine. Men are responsible for the way women behave now, and we have to take accountability for that. And that's what I'm doing. I'm taking accountability by not adding to a bunch of chicks' body counts like I used to, because it's not acceptable. It's not.
I'll pick up the slack.
Yeah. It's not sophisticated behavior, I guess. But I mean, what would you say about it? Unless you have something to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to yield the floor to Jackson.
I mean, I would strongly agree with that 100%. I think a lot of it has to do with there's no social taboo anymore. We don't really have an element of shame in our society anymore. In fact, it's the opposite. I think young women are borderline incentivized, financially to work in pornography. I saw a statistic recently. It was like 1 in 3 or 4 women at the age of 18 are doing some level of OnlyFans.
Yeah.
I think it's a big problem. It teaches us to value one another just in terms of like the flesh aspect, rather than interfacing with each other as human beings. And I think that that's led to a downfall where women have become extremely promiscuous, and it's a big problem.
Extremely. Do you have any children?
I don't. No, not yet. I plan to have many, though.
Okay.
He's a very good uncle, though.
Very good. Okay. Very good. Shout out to Ramon, right? Supporting the work piece of Saints. Appreciate you. May also acknowledge. Jay, he writes, so if Jackson would have a wand and allow an unhappy black person in America to go where they feel comfortable, what would he allow the whites in Southern Africa to do? And what would he allow the blacks in Southern Africa to do? Okay, very good. Do you get that question, or do I need to reread that?
Yeah, no, it kind of cut out there for a second. That's a good question, because colonization sort of stirs the pot and makes it a little bit more complicated. I mean, do you want to get into the topic of colonization? We can pivot a little bit if you'd like.
Not yet.
Okay.
We'll just say narrowly, the whites in South Africa and the blacks in South
trade
Africa.
them out.
I would say that the white people would be allowed to maintain control over the society, because I think that they built a better society compared to the native South African black sub-Saharans that were there previously. And I think that would be to the benefit not just of the colonists, but of the other black people that also inhabit the country. I think it would be for the betterment of everybody. It's a bit of a controversial take, but that's my opinion.
It's not controversial if you're a white supremacist. So we got one here, folks. We got one here.
We can use words, but it's what it is,
No, I'm saying we got one.
What does that mean?
Supremacist.
What does that mean?
A white supremacist would probably be better defined by a white supremacist. I think they'd probably be mad. Like,
well, you said it.
Defining what we are.
But you said it.
I would say simply, a white supremacist is one who believes in the superiority of the white man.
Well, so because he said they built the
thing.
superior civilization, that means supreme.
No, it's really the fact that you're in a place called Africa, which is undoubtedly the land of the blacks. Mm-hmm. And in as much as that's the case, the most reasonable, obvious thing to do would probably be to just tell the whites to go back to a white country, to leave the blacks in the black country, put the whites back in the white country, and let everyone proceed. But if you're a white supremacist, then you say, well, if you leave it to the blacks, they're going to mess it up. And really, it wouldn't matter if they did mess it up, because they're messing it up for themselves, right? So it really shouldn't matter.
Well, which is true.
But if you say leave the whites there to rule over them, then I would say that's a white supremacist position. And currently, being that we're not in a debate,
we can call it
fantastic.
We can call it white supremacy, but I also included in my answer the betterment of everybody. I mean, it's objectively true that the black people had a higher quality of life in the countries where the colonists came into. So we can call that
That's not objectively true.
Okay, well, we can call it racial superiority,
that would not be objectively true. For example, you said blacks had a better quality of life in the places where the whites went in and colonized. Is that correct?
Overall, I would say overwhelmingly, yeah.
Overwhelmingly, okay.
Yeah.
And how do you calculate overwhelmingly?
Well, we can talk about Zimbabwe, for example. How
about we talk about Congo?
I don't know a lot about the Congo.
Well, how do you calculate it?
I can give you a couple examples.
How do you calculate it?
Well, I'll give you the most important example, which is the Congo. And if you're going to speak about this, especially overwhelmingly, you surely are going to want to be educated on it.
How are they doing?
And I say this not to debate, but but just merely to teach. So the Congo was colonized by King Leopold, the Belgians, and the atrocities that they committed there are horrible. Some would say it's the greatest genocide that has ever occurred in the human experience in terms of death toll. Others would say that without death toll is the most brutal because they'd amputate the limbs of children, boys and girls, to make sure that they could extract rubber. And when you have examples like this, or just the fact that circa the 1960s, many of the African nations throughout the colonial powers, many of them by war, you mentioned Rhodesia, you call it Zimbabwe, at the time it was Rhodesia. So that would only indicate that the natives were not happy with white rule, or else they would have just left things as they are. So that point is very poor. And that's why I don't debate.
Oh, okay, I mean, you gotta let me respond.
That's why I'm just interviewing you. I don't debate, I just interview you.
You gotta let me give a rebuttal to that at least, because we can use one example, but there's a plethora of other examples.
Well, I just used two. I used the one that I spoke of first, which is the most important one, because if you look at landmass, the Congo is enormous.
Okay, well,
and then you reference Zimbabwe.
I'll give you
Rhodesia, and so I referenced the same one that you referenced. And further, it's consistent throughout the entire continent.
Sure.
I'm not debating because I find debates to be too easy.
I want to give you an answer to the question though. So you gave two examples. Yes. I'll give two examples. So in Zimbabwe, they implemented land-based reparations that got rid of the white farmers. And after the black people assumed the roles of the white farmers, the average Zimbabwean citizen went into a caloric deficit. The second example I would give is in 1966.
Let's finish the first example before you
hold on.
Because
see, you are debating. You are debating. You're chiming in, and then you're saying we're not debating. You are debating.
Is it an interview or is it a debate?
I want it to be noted for the audience that I reached out to one of them, and the reason I reached out to one of them is because I was already on his profile. It wasn't any particular favor. I was just already on your profile, Forrest, and I invited one person because I didn't want there to be too many voices at once. Just because I want there'll be at times some back and forth because we're talking about race.
Sure.
But there are two of you guys, and just for the ease of the conversation, we'll just try to balance it off and we'll switch back and forth. But the reason that I wanted to hold you to the first example, because if you're going to a different country, then we don't want to leave the other one unfinished. So are you going to a different country, or are you giving a second example in the same country?
I'm giving you a second example in the same country. I'm playing off of the same thing that you did. So So in the 1960s, there's actually an excellent documentary about this. It's called Africa Audio. You're a smart guy. I'm sure you probably know about it. It's also, the title has also been changed to Blood and Guts.
You got to repeat that because you faded out. You have to repeat that. I want people to hear what you're saying.
Oh, sorry. So I said there's a really fascinating documentary for your audience or anybody who's interested in this topic, from maybe looking at the history of colonization from a different point of view. We can call it white supremacy, but it's just a matter of being open-minded. It's called Africa Audio. It's an Italian documentary, but in some countries it's also called Africa Blood and Guts. And what they show is that within a month of the British colonizers leaving Kenya in 1966, the country falls into complete disaster. Within approximately a month, the native black people commit an atrocity against the Arab people, and there's actual real live helicopter footage where they're marching these people out to the beaches and killing them. Within a month, they completely disrupt the ecosystem. They killed 12,000 baby elephants. There's footage of chopped off limbs. It's very disturbing. So in my mind, it's not a matter of racial superiority. It's just looking at
what Kenya, the Kenya example, it seems unrelated to the core argument. Your core argument is that
we're talking about colonization.
Were better off under white rule.
No, the question was about South Africa originally.
Yeah, the question was originally about South Africa, and then you essentially stated that the blacks are better off under white rule. I said that, yes, that's white supremacy, and I didn't say that to insult anyone. I just said that in terms that's a fundamental driving belief of that kind of thinking, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not here to debate that. And then one of you took issue with it. It seemed like it was more so Forrest at white supremacy, and
Well, it's not that I take issue with it, because I'll allow that brand. It's fine. Sure. I don't self-identify, but I asked you to define it, and you said that it's better.
So the Kenya example is very flimsy because it didn't address. One second. The Kenya example is very flimsy because it didn't address the core argumentative piece, which is that the blacks are better off under the whites.
It addresses
you mentioned the first example of Rhodesia, now known as Zimbabwe, and you mentioned that the caloric intake dove after the white farmers left, and There are reasonable arguments to make. That actually was not one of the better ones. The best argument to make in favor of why the whites should have stayed would
No,
be
they
that
did great.
they were commercial farmers and they had the experience and they had the time invested in being good at that. Just like if you take professionals out of any situation.
You're right. Africa's doing great.
But
the only
now
reation
you're
people
interrupting.
don't want
You
to
don't have
live
to
there
interrupt.
is
You don't
because
have
of
to
the white
interrupt.
people.
You don't have to interrupt. Like, interrupting is not necessary. We're having a civil conversation. You don't have to interrupt.
Right.
I know people only do that when they have a problem with the truth getting out. I've not said anything foul. I'm just responding with facts. Now, with regards to the Zimbabwe situation, one thing you didn't mention, because you mentioned caloric intake, most of these countries are organized with trade. And generally, you're going to trade with developed countries. You're going to trade with countries that are free. You're going to trade where there's pre-existing lines of trade. One of the big issues that occurred once the British were taken out of power in Rhodesia is that they had enormous sanctions put onto Zimbabwe. Those sanctions are what crashed the economy. In addition to what you mentioned, which is the exit of the white farmers. I think that was poorly undertaken. However, it was the most genius thing in the world because there's only one wealth in this world. It's land. So being that land is the only wealth, and that is a black land, he returned the land to its true owners so that they could exploit it for themselves. The reason that they had enormous hyperinflation is because of what the British, the United Kingdom, one of the most powerful countries in the world, did to sanction them. That's number one. Now, when you want to talk about the functioning of a government, which government today has had so many defaults on their loans? It's essentially a white country. And since Forrest was speaking up, which country is it that's been defaulting on all of their loans?
I have no idea.
Then you shouldn't debate me. It's Argentina. You should
we
know
weren't
it because it's
debating.
been in the news. It's been in the news a lot. You were debating when you were interrupting me. That's why I said we're going to have an interview.
I was
When you were interrupting me.
I
You were
was trying
attempting
to respond.
debate.
You let me know when I can respond, and I'll respond. That's fine.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying we both know that it's not civilized to talk while someone else is talking. I haven't done that to either of you, even though there's two of you.
You have.
Yeah, I was
But I've
trying.
only done
I
it-
did.
I've
I
only
didn't
done
even
it in
get to
the
respond
capacity of a
fully.
journalist.
I
I've
didn't
not
even
done
get
it
to
in the
respond to your
Okay, so
question
you get to
fully.
interrupt. My bad.
Well, you have to remember the only reason I came out of the journalist position is because you've been asking me questions.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
I
what
was,
want.
I was responding to a question that was asked to me. I didn't even get to respond to it fully without getting interrupted in the first place.
Go ahead.
So you said Kenya was a flimsy example. Look, it doesn't have to be a personal thing, but the reality is we have to ask ourselves, the question is very simple. Would you rather live in a society run by white people or a society built by black people? Kenya is a case study. Within a month of all the white British people leaving, the country turns into an absolute unmitigated disaster. It's not a personal thing. It's not a white supremacist thing, whatever that means. It's just the reality. Look at the evidence.
Okay, so did you yield the floor?
Well, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. I only say that because
No, that's
You stopped
fair.
talking.
That's
I just didn't want to interrupt.
that's perfectly fair.
if you
Go
have
ahead.
an elaboration,
I mean,
Okay,
there's
cool.
more to be said, but
So-
I mean, go ahead.
there's an infinite amount to be said. But the fact of the matter is the white supremacist perspective is interventionist. It's the inclination to rule over other peoples. It's a warlike mentality. It's a devilish mentality. That's what forms the core of the white supremacist perspective and behavior on earth, which has been dangerous to all of humankind. You see, if you were just a racially conscious white person, you said, hey, I don't hate other people. I'm all about being white. And do you? Great. There's a ton of countries even today that are very homogenous. I do a lot of business in Poland. Lovely country, very orderly, peaceful, great culture, and it's overwhelmingly white, super white. Great place to go live if you don't like diversity. And if you were waving a magic wand, as it were, you should want to get the whites out of Africa because they don't belong there. That's not their place. You should send them back to where they want to be, back to where they should be. Because the truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter to you how blacks are getting on because you're white. Be among the whites. Live your life as a white person among white people. Leave the blacks to themselves. So the real question is, why is it that you want to be embedded among a people that are not your people in a land that is not your land? Why not just say, like, those whites in South Africa, they're Dutch, they're English. Send them back to Northern Europe, send them back to the UK, and then we can get on fine. That's the most logical thing. What you said is not the most logical thing. It's the white supremacist thing. And I'm saying there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not the most logical. The most logical is
That's
that
fair. That's
white
fair.
with white, black with black.
That's fair. I'd like to respond to that. So, I guess there's two ways of looking at the idea of embedding yourself in other cultures, either as a person who wants to commit conquest or as a person who wants to create abundance. I have no interest in waging conquest on non-white people. I want to create abundance. And if that would encompass going to other countries, I think that ultimately that would be a good thing. And I think that, yes, there's a history of human rights abuse if you look at the colonists who came to sub-Saharan Africa. But I think that overall, in a lot of these countries, they built a better quality of life. So there is a question of like, look, if white people are running the societies and people overall are safer, if things are more efficient, wouldn't that be a more like morally acceptable rule of thumb?
Why do you feel the need to be among black people? Why not just be in Europe and
I
do all
don't.
that?
I don't personally. I'm just kind of
Okay,
going.
so I'm saying, why are
Yeah.
you arguing for whites to be among blacks instead of just going and being among each other?
Well, I think that a lot of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa that the white people colonized were pretty great societies. I think Rhodesia was awesome. I think South Africa was pretty cool. I mean, I think
Have you been to South Africa?
No, definitely not
Have
right
you
now.
been
I don't want to go right now.
Have you been to Zimbabwe?
No.
Okay. Well, you say not right now with regards to South Africa. I've gone many times. South Africa is not experiencing a white genocide. It's not experiencing attacks on whites. This is all completely fabricated.
I talked to
And I
white
know
people
this-
who are like actively getting attacked and disagree.
Okay, you
so-
did just interrupt me. I just want to make a note of that in
Okay, go ahead.
case you guys claim that that's not the case. And more importantly, I think it's probably more valid if you've actually been to the country versus like talking about what you heard. And I would even challenge, because I've been to South Africa more than 13 times. I see you shaking your head no. That's why I don't debate you guys. But I see you shaking your head no. I've been to South Africa over 13 times. I've done business there. Who do you think has more contacts in South Africa, be them black or white? You or me?
I hope it's you.
Jackson, we're waiting on your response. Who has more
Do
South
I
African
have to
contacts?
experience something to be able to have an opinion on it?
Jackson, I'm asking
Yeah.
you, who has more South African contacts, you or me?
So it's
Oh,
an appeal to
I
authority.
would assume you. Yeah, sure.
Yes, and it's not even close. It's a huge gap. I have
So
way more South African contacts, and they're in business, and most of them are white. And the reason that most of them are white is because whites control the economy in South Africa for obvious reasons. And as much as that's the case, you're operating on your biases and your emotions. Like, for example, between the two of you, I would say that Forrest comes off more reasonable, whereas you come off as psychotically racist. And racism itself is an irrational thing.
People say that.
It's a very irrational thing. And that's why generally I don't debate white supremacists, because they have trouble sticking to the truth. Like, you just tried to tell me anecdotes, and you also tried to speak with authority on a place you've never even visited to someone who's been there many times and has many contacts. I've hired employees there. I've done business there. So it would be very arrogant to try to speak to me with authority about a place you've never even been to. Have you ever been to the continent of Africa?
You're
Jackson?
saying a lot of things. I got to be given an opportunity.
I would like to.
to
I
the
would like to
continent?
chime in
Hold on,
too.
one
Just
more.
real quick, Jackson, have you been to the continent of Africa?
I haven't, and it's irrelevant.
You have not. No, it's very relevant.
No,
actually.
it's not. I don't need
No,
to
it's
be
very
there
relevant.
to. I don't need
It's
to be
only,
there to have
it's
an
only
opinion on it.
irrelevant if you have a strong need to be right at all cost.
I don't need to
it's
be
okay to
right.
say, no, sometimes it's okay to be humble and say, I don't know, or I'm unsure, or I need to do more research. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, you should take
You
your
see,
own lesson.
That's the way I try to approach the conversation, which is acknowledging what I don't know. You're talking from the experience of I heard, and you've
I'm
not
really
even been to the
not.
continent of Africa. I think that's pretty bad.
Well, you
Because
saying
go ahead.
you saying that you have more physical experience in South Africa is also an anecdote, by the way. But I do want to chime in because I know we're not debating.
No, I can speak to data, just like I spoke to data with the situations in Rhodesia and Congo.
I don't
But
have.
I'm not trying to debate because it would be too easy.
Yeah, I don't have much of a dog in this particular fight. I just want to go back to the first thing, because when I was interrupting you, I didn't mean to do it rudely. I was just trying to chime in because
Yeah, I didn't take it as that. No worries.
right. So the initial thing, you called his point white supremacist. Am I lagging? Okay. You called his point white supremacist. I asked you what that
Which
meant.
is, mind you, not an insult. I don't consider it an insult.
I
just
know,
want
I
you
know.
guys to both know.
I don't take
consider
it as an
myself
insult. I was
insulting.
trying to explain that. I don't take it as an insult.
I feel like he took it as an insult.
No, because what it is, and he would put it better, it's terminological spell casting. It's a term that just imports a bunch of other things into it. But before you interrupt, I asked you, what does that mean? Because you said it. right? And you said, well,
Right.
let's
Correct.
defer to white supremacists. So if I don't identify as a white supremacist and you want to defer to them, then who's supposed to define what white supremacist is? Really what it is, it's a means to just kind of silence an opinion. You said that the core of white supremacy is like wanting to like rule over a people. I said in my initial answer, if I could wave a magic wand, we'd all sing Kumbaya. I don't want to rule over anybody. I didn't care about politics till I was 28 years old. Some of my favorite people in the world are non-white. So when people say white supremacists, they're importing all of these preconditions that I just want to like rule over people and I hate non-whites because they're subservient to me. That is not at all what I think. But again, we're talking about the interest of representation, and that's why I am pro-white. So when you say white supremacists, it's like, what exactly do you mean by that? Because I don't say that. I mean, I guess I'll let you respond.
That's a good question, and I think that you are accurate, and I think you missed the point where I drew a line between the two of you. I realize you're both brothers, but you represent different positions, and I've asked you all the same question separately, and in some cases there were separate answers. And in as much as that's the case, when we saw the differentiation, I said, okay, well, Jackson, you're more on the white supremacist side. Now, mind you, I have no problem with white supremacists white supremacy, and I describe what it is, and that's what he was speaking to. Whereas what you were speaking to was not white supremacists. And that's why I use the term. Now, I agree with you that there are people who will call you a Nazi, they'll call you a white supremacist, and they're doing it to insult you, they're doing it to try to make people hate you, they're doing it to shut you up. And I was just doing it in the sense of descriptive, in as much as he clearly believes that whites are superior at running societies, which he's entitled to that perspective, and there's evidence for it. So I said, you're white supremacist. And that's descriptive, and it's accurate. It's completely accurate. So
well, I don't speak,
see
I'm sorry.
the hoopla.
Well, it's not hoopla. I don't speak for Jackson, but in his wand waving example, he said he would leave people to find their own destiny. He didn't say whites would conquest over all the non-whites. So I don't think his position, again, he can speak for himself, comes from a position of wanting that. And then second to that, what was the other thing? The example of why that's white supremacist is him saying that they built a superior civilization in South Africa to the one that existed before it. How was that supremacy? If there's a white basketball team and a black basketball team, and the black basketball team demolishes the white, how was that not black supremacy to say they're better? They're just better at basketball. Why does this have to import all of these preconditions and words and things that silence?
So I did not object to whether it was a better society. I think we have to acknowledge it's like better for who, and that I destroyed effortlessly. And I said the most important thing is that why not just have the whites with the whites? We notice consistently the problem with the white ruling class is their inclination to go around the whole planet Earth and commit many of the crimes that the white speakers today like to talk about: murder, RAPE, all forms of immorality and violence, which is essentially how you establish colonization, right? You use extraordinary levels of violence and genocide. And so in as much as that's the case, the people there clearly did not consider them to be welcomed, which is why they threw off the yoke of colonialism circa the 1960s. One particular country was never colonized. Do you know which country in Africa that was?
I don't know, but I do have a response.
Jackson?
Is
Do you know which
Liberia?
country? No, Liberia actually was created to repatriate Black Americans back to the continent of Africa. And that was a really interesting experiment. But it was Ethiopia, the opposite side of the continent. Anyways, I say all that to say, the white supremacist position is that Black people need you. They're embedded, like helping them, and they don't need you. And if they're going to suffer, let them suffer. It's fine. You know, leave the whites in Europe, leave the whites where they come from, and leave the land of the Blacks to the Black people. It's the supremacist mentality that wants to be there ruling over others. And the idea of supremacy, or that you should rule over others, has created much violence, death, and bloodshed. And only the white supremacist is not able to acknowledge that because they're psychotically racist. It's irrational. That's why enslaved Africans came to America on a slave ship named Jesus. So the kind of psychological issues you have to be a good Christian while having a slave ship called Jesus, it's extraordinary levels of delusion.
Can I say one last thing? I don't want to get hung up on that thing. It was his example anyway.
I know,
but,
right?
But even
little brothers, I have a little brother too. They're kind of,
all right.
Parents
But
went through
that's
something.
just condescending.
But you are condescending. You are condescending. But I still like
buddy.
you. But
You
even
don't have to be so sensitive.
I'm not sensitive.
Even if his example,
like I have a
hold on.
little brother, we tease little brothers. I'm just like teasing you as a little brother. I'm not trying to insult you as a man.
All right,
I'm just saying.
let's do the conversation.
I don't feel insulted.
All right. So even if his conversation was ill-informed and incorrect, let's just grant everything you just said, and the blacks were doing great in South Africa before it was colonized. Let's just assume that's true. Him being misinformed and thinking that's not the case, that's white supremacy. Because again, thinking like if the fundamental component of white supremacy is thinking that whites must and are obligated in some weird way to rule over non-whites, if that's sort of the definition, it's like, do you think that? Because we could clear it up right now, I think, right?
Well, I feel like I already clarified that. I included in my original answer, it's about bettering the society for everybody. I was pretty clear about that. It's the distinction between wanting to conquest
So
and
even if they don't want you there. So even if the blacks don't want you there. So even if the blacks don't want the whites there, just still leave them there to better the society?
I think it depends. I think it depends on which country you're talking about.
Well, in the whole continent of Africa, the blacks, if you take a popular vote, they don't want the whites there.
That's fair.
Yeah. So then should the whites all leave Africa?
Well, as of now, it's complicated because people have been intermixing there for decades.
Right. I'm just saying, like, let's pretend as though there were no mixed people. It was just the pure blacks and the pure whites. And the blacks say, hey, we don't want you here. Should the whites leave?
Yeah, I think people should be allowed to be left to their own devices ultimately, but I do think it's also part of the white destiny to spread abundance to different places that they go. I think that's part of what makes us European.
Can you repeat that for the people?
I think it's part of the European destiny to spread abundance, not just from our own societies, but to other people's societies. Yeah.
Wait, are you a white supremacist, dude? We can't be brothers anymore.
That was great. I know. I was thinking. That was crazy. That was amazing.
Okay.
Wow. Would you consider Jewish people to be white?
No.
No, and they don't really consider themselves to be white either, from what I've seen, at least.
Okay, so you don't consider them to be white. Okay.
They tend to sharply dissociate themselves from white people, even though the Ashkenazi tribe are between 30 to 55% European, Eastern, though, and then the other is like Levantine or Canaanite descendants. So they're like half Middle Eastern.
Well, that's what they say, but DNA tests are not permitted in Israel.
Well, that's the thing about DNA tests that I'm apprehensive about, by the way, because I don't know if I can even trust the results. So that's kind of what I meant earlier. Is like they're all owned by the same people. Not to get all JQ conspiracy, but let's be honest.
Yeah. Let's we gotta stay away from it. If we were to define white and we had 3 points, like just to say like you're white, you're not white. Like for example, Barack Obama. If I could send him over to your team, I absolutely would. Like, I'd much rather him be white as opposed to black. So draw the line in the sand for me. If maybe 3 points, I just usually like 3. Like if you pick 3 points, I'm like, these 3 things make you white. What are they?
I don't think it can be identified in that way. But how about this?
Okay.
Nick
Nick
Fuentes is the line, and anything to the right of Nick Fuentes is white. How about that?
So he's in the group or he's out of the group?
I would consider him largely in the white group, yeah.
That's sort of like an ongoing meme in the community is that he's like the parameter. Like anybody beyond him isn't considered in the club or whatever. It's kind of like a loose joke, but
it is arbitrary, and I grant you that because, I mean, it's the same thing as this, Marquett.
No,
it's like
I don't think it has. I'm not suggesting that it's arbitrary. I'm just saying as the whites, define what the whites are. Like, for example, if you say, hey, Marquett, as the blacks, define what the blacks are, then I'd probably say, you know what? I'll give you 4 shades lighter than me. So maybe, like, definitely not Barack Obama. I think that's too light. So Barack Obama is going on your team. Or he'd go on anyone else's team, just not mine. So I'd say, like, 4 shades lighter than me. That's as light as you can be. And then I'd say, if you smile and you don't have an upper lip, you're not in our team. So that's the second one. And then the third one, I'd say, if your hair grows out of your head, if you grow your hair to say 10 inches and it just, or no, how about this? If you grow your hair to 2 inches and it falls, you're not in our group. Do you know what I mean by fall? As opposed to so it doesn't necessarily have to be tightly coiled, but if it falls, you're not in our group. So I'd say we'll take the hair measure, we'll take the complexion measure, and then we'll take the lip smile. That's my racism. You're black if you're within those 3 categorical pieces. So if you each, and you don't have to have the same ones, but what would be and mine are just examples. Like, don't call me a racist, damn it.
Well, that's funny. I think your answer is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, which I appreciate. I would say this because there is an arbitrary nature, because I think that the whole skin thing is too superficial to be a parameter. Because if I'm
you are losing your racist points. Good Lord, this man is an artist.
Well, hear me out. So if I tan more than him, am I less white? I wouldn't say so, because what if
in my racist book? Yes.
Yeah, but what if my genetic code is 100% pure Nordic and his is like 12% like Arab or something, but he's just more white? It's like,
then we're gonna have to get it retested.
All right, I see what you're saying, but again, the point is that the skin complexion is pretty superficial.
It's all muddy. It's all
right
muddy.
because again, it's like, was Michael Jackson black? It's like, yeah, but he looked like a white guy, and you could say it was a skin condition, but exactly. Well, exactly though. The skin is a superficial.
For the record, this bro tried to steal Michael. That was. It's crazy.
No, you can have him. You can have him.
No,
but here's the thing. It is arbitrary, and it's okay that it's arbitrary, because race, I think, is real, as I think you would acknowledge is real. But defining white and black categorically is arbitrary, in the same way that you say, what constitutes an adult? Well, we largely agree in the United States it's 18. Well, why isn't it 21? Well, I mean, it could be, but it's 18 because why? We agree socially, and you have to draw a line, otherwise PDF file is legal, right? So you have to draw those hard lines. So what constitutes a white person? Well, that's not really up to me, is it? It's up to sort of a
no,
collective.
If we're building a white movement, and I'm trying to help with this white movement, damn it, by bringing some shape to it. That's what I'm asking. We're building a white movement here, God damn it. I need to know who's in. And I think that eventually it will get clarified, but there'll be a great mind who will clarify it. Because frankly, what we look at in the Third Reich, which was fascinating stuff, they're very scientific about it. Even though much of it was pseudoscience, they were still scientific about it. And a lot of it, in fact, was borrowed from the United States eugenics movement, which I do actually, in fact, support eugenics. We'll go on to Jackson. I feel like your racism is a little stronger. So do you have some demarcations for what is white?
Well, I mean, sort of alluding to what he said before, it's difficult because of the amount of mixing and the different categories we have. It's become sort of arbitrary over time. If I had to draw a parameter, I wouldn't do 3 points like you said. I would probably do 2. I would say I would say European and Caucasoid. So people hailing from the continent of Europe, and people who are of the human subset Caucasoid.
But what percent is the question?
And then how do you define, like, I'm not going to say what percentage of Caucasoid I have in me. Is embarrassing. I'm not going to say. I'm not proud at all. But what percent is going to get someone in there? Because obviously there's levels to it, right?
That's a great question. Again, that goes back to like the original thing I said in the first part of the interview, and that we're still kind of trying to figure that out. I think a lot of it has to do with the way that you present and also your temperament. And I think that sort of overrides whatever arbitrary boundaries we're drawing, you know?
Curious.
Well,
the temperament one is a very curious one. We'll probably end up kind of touching on that a little bit later in our culture talks. My hope for you guys is that we stay good friends and you guys step to the front of this movement, because there's no doubt that it is a movement, and what it lacks is proper ideology. And there's just a lot of people who have the same feeling, but there's not been enough focus, in my opinion. Internally, the focus has been so much external. What are the blacks doing? Like, we need to deport these people. But in terms of what are the whites doing is where I see the lack. And I'll tell you what's of interest to me. Like, and then I'm going to stop because I'm supposed to be interviewing you guys. But
it's true.
When Donald says, make America great again, I really believe that we have to make Americans great again, which is going to involve reinculturation, is going to involve education in particular disciplines so that America can compete, and so on and so forth. And for that to happen, it's largely going to depend again on white Anglo-Saxon Protestants because that's the core of this country. Not because I want it to be, but just because that's what it actually is, in as much as whites are 60%. And when we have been getting immigration, it's been not the cream of the crop from other countries. And so we're largely relying on the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant to pull us out of the mud just because the numerical superiority. So in as much as that's the case, I have to be interested in the white movement and its ability to develop the white person. I yield the floor.
Well, in the same way that I would want blacks to be better so they don't commit crime and stuff, like I want people to be, I want people to be better.
And you better be careful. I have some fat black girls come.
Well, look. Here's the reality: if everyone was just well behaved and no one committed crime, no one would hate each other, right? We'd all get along, and there wouldn't even be a racial. It would just happen to be the case that I'm white and you're black, right? But that's obviously never been the thing. There's always like differences, and it creates conflict on a natural level because I believe it really is like nature taking place. But I would agree. I would say that I want people to be best. But I guess, so that you can clarify, do you want it, are you like a white nationalist? Like you want whites to represent the greater people?
I'm definitely not a white nationalist.
Well, then what are you?
I'm a reasonable, objective man. I'm a spirit. I'm a being. I'm a humble spiritual teacher.
Okay.
So
you're not humble, but you are spiritual.
People do call me humble in real life, though, honestly, in real life. Never on the internet, but in real life, people call me humble. Yeah, I know, it's shocking. But the truth of America is that America has been, not currently, but has been the greatest country ever. And that doesn't necessarily mean all good things. Part of it means that we enslaved the whole population. We utilized them to get a great leap forward, which we did. And it also means that America had extraordinary levels of innovation to where it was just wildly imbalanced. Like no one was even close. And in as much as that's the case, America's special. We can't ignore the fact that we're all sitting on the bones of the natives, but America is special. And I'm an American, and my family has been here since the beginning of America. And my blood actually is, as far as America goes, is more pure than most white people in America because through Ellis Island, they were recent arrivals, whereas my lineage is not of recent arrivals, it's from the beginning, before America was formally the United States of America. So in as much as that's the case, this is my place. And I want to see it thrive. America was great based on Protestant Anglo-Saxon values that at most of the time did not benefit Black people, but there were strong values to make a country innovative, to make people have a strong savings rate. And then you saw things start to break down. I'll tell you when I think whites stopped respecting themselves. I identify it as when prohibition was repealed, because America was a country started by white religious zealots. Not to say that they were good people, but they were religious zealots, and at least they cared about each other. They might have been like, F the N-words, hard R, we don't like them, the natives, kill them. But us whites, we respect each other. But when they repealed prohibition, they showed that the whites had become more demonic and more interested in doing things that hurt themselves as opposed to protecting themselves. And that's at the point in which I was like, okay, the government stopped caring about the people and the people stopped caring about each other. And then it starts to tank from there, culturally, in my perspective. So I say that to say this. The innovative nature, the industrious nature of the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant on a Protestant ethic, if we can rebirth that for all of the inhabitants of America, we have a strong America. But we have a lot of degenerates, both white and Black, but the white degenerates are more dangerous because there's more of them. Not necessarily by a percentage of population, but by an absolute number of. So that's my only interest in the whites, which is if the whites go down, I'm going down with them. Like, God damn it. There you go.
That makes sense. Would you admit that the reason why
I won't admit anything.
Well, do you perhaps think that the reason why the country was so great at its inception was characteristic of the people that devised the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence? Do you think it was unique to that people group? Or do you think anybody could have done it?
So are you saying genetically or culturally?
Well, right, because the way that you describe the inception of the United States is very similar.
It's cultural.
Yeah, well, the way you describe that is very similar to the way people say, well, it's black culture or it's this culture, when culture is downstream from genetics, right? Obviously, there's other factors, but it is downstream from genetics. So isn't everything else then?
That one, there's no evidence of, but like, for example, if you said something more offensive, like if you said IQ comes from genetics, then I'd be like, okay.
Well,
we can have
IQ is a
conversation.
heritable genetic trait.
Right, we could have a conversation about that because there's a lot of evidence on that. You
Yeah.
say genetics and culture,
Well,
absolutely
IQ isn't the end all be all, right? There's incredibly
no, IQ is
innovative.
really important.
It
I'd
is-
say it's
it
about
is.
90% of your outcome is IQ.
It is.
But to your point, I do not believe that culture roots from genetics. However, IQ and genetics are connected, and I believe culture is going to be a function of a number of things, namely environment, for example. And when you take those factors added together, it will create strength in certain peoples. Like, for example, I'll tell you one thing I observe about Europeans. I truly believe it comes from having an ice age and having strong winters. Europeans tend to be good planners,
Yep.
long-term thinkers, and you have to be a good planner and long-term thinker if there is going to be a winter. Conversely, if you're in a place where there will be no winter and you can enjoy the good weather and you can hunt big game year-round, you are not culturally situated on being a long-term planner or someone who can do a SWOT analysis and respond to threats. There's no doubt that there are differences in genetics of all of the varieties of humankind. And so I think we agree there. Now, with regards to the particular whites that came to the Americas, I think that culturally they were a unique type of white, white person, white human.
Sure.
And they were very vicious, which I think is a necessity for dominating, which was required for them to eradicate the natives and take over the land, which the land is, as I said earlier, the only true value. So I think they had a particular culture, and most of that was, you got to remember, these are the people who decided to leave Europe for whatever reason, whether it's to have their own religion, religious freedom, or to find economic opportunity, or whatever the case was. But it's the same explanation of why Nigerians do better than Black Americans. They don't necessarily have superior DNA, because a lot of Black Americans have Nigerian DNA. It's because the ones who came from Nigeria are the ambitious ones and the upper class ones. So you're comparing Nigeria's upper class to the foundational Black Americans' entire class.
Where does ambition
Same thing
come
with
from?
the Europeans. Go ahead.
Where does ambition come from?
Do tell.
Well, I don't know. I'm asking. It's like, is it not an intrinsic characteristic of your being? Is someone not sort of born ambitious? Obviously, you can teach ambition and perseverance, but you have to also be taught by someone who has that inclination. So, like, where does this come from? It seems to me I'm sort of like a determinist. I don't believe in free will even. I believe in absolute determinism. So I think everything really is downstream from not just genetics, but like nature. Right? So I think when we think about things in the context of culture or religion, I think all of these are
downstream
emerging
from genetics, and then you fade it out. So just rewind.
No, yeah,
first.
it's
You
not
said-
that I think everything's genetics, but it's like everything's downstream from nature, I think. So when we talk about religion and art and culture, where do these things come from? They're emergent properties, much like consciousness is, which, again, consciousness we can't account for, but I do consider those other things emergent properties of the people. And we largely agree about the reason why that is. People evolved differently at different parts of the globe for different things. Africa is an incredibly resource-dense place, and they didn't need to conquest and go through long winters, so they're different. So, like, would you say... I would say that Black Africans could not have created the United States. And I don't think that that's a moral quality that I'm saying. You might say, you might say that that's white supremacist. But again, I think that we kind of largely agree. I mean, what do you think about that?
Which part? Like the last part, Black
Would you say
Americans-
that's white
Black Africans
supremacist?
could not have created the United States? Like
Well,
that
you can
piece?
do quotes, but that's what I think. I would say that
No,
confidently.
I'm not quoting to like be dismissive.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I'm quoting to say like this is the part of the sentence I'm quoting from you.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So I'm just going to repeat it again just to make sure we're talking about the same thing. So the statement is Black Africans could not have created the United States. End quote.
Yes.
That's it. Okay. Could not, hard to say. Are highly unlikely? Absolutely. And
Well,
I'll
they
tell you
didn't.
why. I
Right,
think
they
that
didn't.
there's a multivariate explanation. The most important variable, one of the things I'm certain is different, even though we may not have had the studies on it and we may never get them, the European is far more ruthless than the African by nature.
I don't think that's true. What about the warrior
Okay.
gene?
Are you, am I answering or are you talking?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
There was like
The
there was a
European
lag
is
there.
far more ruthless than the African. Like it's not even close. So there's that, and I believe that is genetic. And then in addition to that, the European has had to deal with greater levels of scarcity. And because of having, again, winters is like just one simple explanation of dealing with scarcity.
True.
So when you deal with scarcity, you have to accumulate. So an accumulation mindset could be mapped onto what you would call ambition. The problem is when it goes a little bit too far. I think the Europeans tend to go too far. So number one, to create the United States of America, the first thing you have to do is arrive here and kill everybody. I do not think the Africans have that in their DNA. I'm not talking about from a technological standpoint. I'm not talking about from a technological standpoint. I'm not talking about anything other than the actual genetic, vicious spirit of mass murder. You might say, Marquett, well, why do you say that? Well, let's leave the Africans aside. We also have the Arabs. We have the Americans, the original ones. We have the Aborigines. We have the Indians. We have the Asians. You know, they've gotten a little bit of action, but the only population that's gone around the planet Earth and murdered to the level of extinction has been the European. They went to the Americas, they emptied out North America. That's a hell of a job. They went into South America, emptied out the whole damn thing. That's really impressive. They went to Australia, slaughtered nearly everybody and marginalized the remaining Aborigines to the desert where it's not much arable land. They colonized China, then they colonized Africa. So pretty vicious people. Like in terms of like body count, the Europeans are so far ahead of all of the other racial categories combined that to suggest that they're not vicious and murderous, you'd be ludicrous because we're talking about hundreds of millions of bodies ahead. So that is a representation of nature. Just like if you said, Marquette, well, let's consider the IQ test. Well, I'm not going to argue with the IQ test. The IQ tests show what they show. The numbers are there. Just like the murderous spirit of the European, the numbers are there. And I think just as much as some Black folks will argue against IQ tests, almost every white supremacist argues against the evil nature of the European, even though the numbers are very clear.
I would agree with almost everything you just said, except for it being exclusively European. The only reason Africans from sub-Saharan Africa didn't go around raping and killing everyone,
We gotta stop. We gotta be careful with the R.
RAPing everyone and killing everyone and conquesting is because they didn't possess the necessary technology to do so. And that's so obvious to say. I've never said that Europeans don't have a high
what about
body
the people
count.
in the Americas? Is that true of them and the Arabs? And
I'm sorry, you interrupted. Go ahead.
I'm saying, like, aside from the Blacks, because you'll notice when I gave my argument, I said aside from the Blacks, like all the other people groups. So did none of the other people groups have not?
I think every people group has done all sorts of crazy, terrible things that we would consider
We're talking
immoral.
about scale.
Right. Well, that goes to my original point, is that it comes down to the ability to do that.
Yeah, so the Europeans were able to commit those atrocities on that level of scale because they had the required technology. If you gave the atomic bomb to sub-Saharan Africans, do you think we'd all be getting together in a circle singing Kumbaya? Come on, man, give me a break.
So is your suggestion that the Asians have a lower IQ, significantly lower than the Europeans?
What?
No.
Okay.
They have a higher IQ.
Yeah,
They have a higher IQ. Okay, great. So now let's take that. So you
Eastern
basically
Asians have the
suggested
highest.
that none of the other human populations have created mass murder at scale because they don't have the technology
That's
to do
not
so.
what I said. Asians have done atrocities too.
But the Asians haven't done that. And we look at the Chinese, they're a behemoth with 1 billion people.
Yeah,
And
yep.
they still have not committed the colonial efforts that you see from the Europeans today.
They don't want to.
So why are the Chinese not a warlike people?
Because they're actually more supremacist than white people are.
No, real
because
quick,
they
real
stay
quick.
to
Why
themselves.
are the Chinese not a warlike people the way the Europeans are even today?
I don't agree with
I don't
that
accept that.
at all. They're way more militant than we are. They're about to
Again,
invade
that's why,
Taiwan.
again, like in that, you really, I say racism is a deeply psychological thing because you become irrational. You just said that the Chinese are more militant than America. If you look at budgetary spending, does the Chinese budget come anywhere near the United States' budget on military?
Dude, you're gonna say a Chinese
Okay,
person?
boom. So that's eradicated. That argument's eradicated.
Hold
The
on,
It's
American
not
military
eradicated.
budget-
That's
The
not
American
eradicated.
military budget is way higher than anyone else's.
Who
That's
runs the
number one.
military
Then
budget?
number two, if you look at military bases around the world, the United States has more military
thinks he's
bases than
smoking.
most
That's what he
investigative
thinks.
journalists can count. You compare that to the Chinese, it's not even comparable at any level. Then number three, if you look at number of wars started, the Chinese don't even compete. No one competes. In fact, you could take the Western countries, which is to say the white countries, versus the entire remaining planet Earth, and there's no comparison because the white countries are very vicious and violent. Even if you look at right now, the United States is trying to provoke a war with which country?
I think we could largely attribute the
Just
evolution
real quick,
of
though, I'm
modern
asking you a
morality to white
question
people.
right now. What country is America trying to provoke a war with?
Well, hold on. Can we not address anything you just said?
I'm just asking you a question right now. I'm just making
What
my
country
argument.
is
I'm asking
America
you a
trying to
question.
provoke a war with?
Yes. What country is America trying to provoke a war with?
Well, it depends on what you mean. I mean, we're owned by a foreign nation, basically. So what do you mean exactly?
Which is also a nation of white people. So
Okay,
anyways, the point is America's trying to
Okay, well,
provoke
you
a war
say
with
that.
Venezuela right now.
They don't
so
say that.
It doesn't matter what they say because
Yes,
I
it
could say that
does.
I could say that I'm a white woman, but I'll still be a black man. So what people say is irrelevant. The genetic evidence is there and the phenotypical evidence is there. It's not even an argument. It's really ridiculous.
Jews
The
don't
only reason that white
phenotypically
supremacists
look like
consider that
white
the Jews are
people.
not white is to separate themselves from the Jews. That's it. But they're just a different ethnic group within the white bucket. That's all there is. Just like, for example, there may be some black peoples I
Nick
don't like. I'm not
Fuentes
going to
is
name
more
any
white
right
than
now.
Jews are.
I'm not going to name them. But I'm not going to say that they're not black because that's a lie, and I'm not a liar.
Is Nick
but
Fuentes
we
white?
often see that white supremacists lie.
Is Nick Fuentes white in your view?
He would fit in. So there's three racial categories as far as I'm concerned, just to keep it simple: Negroid, Caucasoid, Mongoloid. He would fit most neatly into the Caucasoid category. But if I were a white supremacist, like a real one, like for example, let's just say I was from Sweden. If I was a Swede, I'd like, nah, bro's a Latino. And I'd say that on the basis of his height being quite short. And I'd say that on the basis of his mixed blood. And if I was a white supremacist, ideally, I'd want to be in Europe and I'd want to have pure blood. And I'd probably say the Americans are like mongrels anyways. Like those are not really like, they're like,
Yeah. Well, the height and the skin tone thing, that's really superficial. But he's more white than a Jew is, an Ashkenazi Jew. So I don't know. It's
Also, I completely reject the idea that Jews are just casually categorized as white. I think we just skipped over that way too quickly.
oh, that's not even a sophisticated topic. I mean, to say that the Jews are not white would be like saying that the Bushmen are not
No,
African.
that's just not true.
Like, I'll give you an example. Because I happen
like this guy.
to
It's
know a
funny.
lot of Jews. I know quite a bit of them.
I could
From
tell.
around the world. Yeah, I do. I know a lot of them. I know Jews that are literally blonde with blue eyes. And I'm not talking about bleach blonde like most white women are bleach blonde. I'm talking about literally blonde hairs growing out of their scalp and in their eyebrows.
Yeah.
And they have blue eyes. In addition, I know Jews that are redheads.
Yeah.
So the idea that Jews are not white it's just
But
utterly
that
ridiculous.
gets into
Like,
what
to make that
constitutes-
argument again, just real quick, I want to reiterate again, and I've tried to be racist. I hope you guys know every black person has probably at some point tried to be racist. It's not in our nature, and certainly for me, it's just irrational. And the idea that a Jew is not a white person, when you hear white supremacists say that, that's when you know that they're irrational people and their high IQ has served them not at all because their emotions overwhelm them. To have a person who's blonde with blue eyes or a redhead with green eyes and say that they're not white is ludicrous. If they're not white, what are they?
Well, but again,
That's
they
just
were,
another like mute, condescending point. Like the most prominent Jews throughout the world don't consider themselves white, and most of the prominent rabbis are in that
It doesn't
category,
matter.
too.
Bruce Jenner doesn't consider himself a man.
But really quick, because
what
when
you
You
consider is
said
irrelevant.
the phenotype. Jews don't phenotypically look like Germanic people. They look like a completely distinct group of people.
Your own brother doesn't look like a Germanic person.
Yeah,
Respectfully,
we
like, no
both
disrespect.
look German and English. Like if you look at like
No,
the study
that's not
cases-
true.
Yeah,
that is not true. And just side note,
definitely
respectfully, the English are not good-looking people. I wanted to say that earlier. I was holding it in. The English are not the best of Europe. Okay, I'm talking about the women here. But
Yeah, they got messed up teeth. That's besides the
no,
point,
no,
Marquette. That's besides the
that's
point.
not
You
what's
can't
taking
just
them out of the
breeze
game.
past this because then we're getting into the
They do
arbitrary
have messed up
nature of
teeth,
what
you're right.
constitutes a Jew because it's a matrilineal thing. It's ethnic and religious. So even if your mother's mother's mother was half Jewish, you are a Jew. So you identify with that tight-knit ethnic group. So you might have blue eyes and blonde hair. But again, we're talking about things in terms of identitarian movements, right? What is a Jew? It's an identity. Right, so again, it gets into the arbitrary nature. We can talk phenotype and percent
No, because
European.
they say that it goes through blood, right? So that will make it
It's
a biological
matrilineal.
reality.
Yes, it's
If you
matrilineal.
would just give me one moment here, I'm just going to see if some of the folks have questions for you guys. Shout out to Candace supporting the work. Always love to see the women supporting, even though my guests tried to take away your right to vote. Shame on them. I just want your husband to be able to beat you. Like, you can vote.
They can send
Say-
money.
Anyways, carrying on. Shout out to someone else had just became a member. We appreciate you. That was Mr. Steven. He just became a member at thesassin.com, THESASN.com. Simply click join. Now, also acknowledge Maurice, who came in using the Stripe link in the description. Shout out to Malik. He writes, Peace of the Saints. The Marquett suit is absolutely flames, just supporting good work. I appreciate you. Shout out to the people who actually support this phenomenal
It is a nice suit.
conversation. I also acknowledge Caleb. He writes, there it is. For Jackson, that's what white supremacists don't understand. Who are they to say what a better society is and is not? Agree.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You should go back there then.
Jackson writes, have you looked into whether or not the black societies were peaceful or tumultuous before the European colonizers arrived?
No, they were getting along very well. They
were
did not have,
singing-
they didn't
were
have
singing-
genocides or
They were
anything.
singing "Kumbaya," and the white people showed up and just
Marquette
messed it
says
all
they were
up.
peaceful while the Europeans and all the other races were just
I
conquesting.
actually did not say that.
Well, you said it's unique to European people, which is crazy, dude. The warrior gene is black.
No, I'm saying the inclination to commit genocide and to mass RAPE, that is a European thing. The
No,
Chinese
the
haven't
Mongolians
done it.
did that.
The
Come on,
Arabs
dude.
haven't done it. The blacks haven't done
The
it.
Mongolians
and
did
the
it.
Aborigines haven't done it at scale.
The Mongolians
and so what
did
we
it.
have to acknowledge is that we're all human beings, which is why we can procreate with one another. We're the same species, but just as if you look at canines, different breeds have different inclinations. So for example, we know that the poodle is an intelligent canine. We know that the bully breeds, the pit bulls, they can be violent, like unexpectedly. So sometimes devouring
we
toddlers
agree.
and even sometimes mauling their own owners. And there's just no doubt that the European is the bully breed, and it's been shown evidence over and over again. And I think it's very almost embarrassing to laugh at that, just because we're talking about hundreds of millions of lives lost to European violence.
Okay,
And if
now-
you
We're,
now
realize
it's
la-
like
we're
a lot.
laughing. We're
It's just
laughing.
not
We're,
the
we're
same
laughing.
scale.
I have to
It's
respond
not the
because
same
we're
scale.
laughing because of your condescending tone. You're saying that brutality is unique to white Europeans. We already
I
responded
never
to that.
said
We're
that.
not laughing
I never
at the
said
death.
it's unique.
Okay,
If black
Issachar-
people had the ability to develop the same level of technology, they would have killed everybody on the planet. Give me a break.
No, we told you that you said that Asians have higher IQ, and I said,
Yep.
well, then why have the Asians not murdered at the scale that the Europeans have? What's your answer?
They've also committed atrocities.
I said, why have the Asians not murdered at the scale that the Europeans have? And let me tell you why that's a brilliant question that you cannot answer. It's a brilliant question because you said the reason the Africans didn't do it is because their IQ was too low. I said,
That's
okay,
actually not
well,
what we said.
here I set you up. I said, do the Asians have low IQ? And you said, no, the Asians
that
have
isn't
higher
what
IQ.
we
I
said,
okay,
though.
fantastic. And then later on, you
Yeah.
stated that the reason Europeans were able to murder at scale is because
Yeah.
they have high IQ and that yielded good technology, murder technology. So then I said, well, then why is it that the Asians, who are superior in intellect
Yeah.
even to the Europeans, why haven't they murdered at scale?
May I
Because it's not in their
respond?
nature.
May I respond? So I just want to say, I
It's not
asked.
in their nature. So I'm going to give you a question. I'm going to give you the question real quick. I'm going to just restate the question. The question is, why have the Asian populations not committed mass murder, genocide, and mass RAPE at scale in the way that the Europeans have done around the world? If it's not a unique
I'll
trait
do
to
my
the
best
European.
at answering that question without really knowing a succinct answer. But I wanted to say, I did not bring up IQ. I asked you, where does ambition come from? And then you brought up IQ. I didn't even bring up IQ. So I don't appreciate the
No, this was
steamroll.
unrelated. This was a different time.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I don't. Okay. I guess we'll disagree. That's fine. Why haven't Asians committed genocide at scale? Because they're way nicer and Europeans are evil, I guess. It's fine. Like, fine. I don't.
You can try to give a.
But
an
but
answer.
if
You
but
can
if
try
but
to
if I
argue against it.
grant
It's
that
impossible,
but if I
give
grant
an
that
answer.
is true, then you completely believe the race realist perspective, like, which is fine. I mean, we can say that.
You have a defense of the nature of the
I
European
don't.
ruling class?
I reject the idea that committing atrocity is an exclusively European characteristic. I think all people throughout
That's a
the
straw
world.
man. That's not the argument. The argument
Okay, it's just,
is that the
an
Europeans
interruption,
have
it's
that
another
trait much
interruption.
stronger.
Yeah, because they developed that level of technology. That's the whole point.
What do you say to that?
I already addressed that.
Okay.
Do you think that the Chinese are technologically behind the Americans?
No, they've mastered replication, but not innovation. Most of the replication
You know
comes
what?
from
I like
European
what you
technology.
said, and I think
Europeans
that's my
invented
fear.
everything.
That's my fear for our country, is that mentality, because that used to be true, and I fear that and I'm going to say our white supremacy, because unfortunately in the hells of North America, we're in the boat with you guys, and I think a lot of us believe in the white.
Would you rather
Anglo-Saxon
be here or
product.
Africa?
Do you want me to? You mind if I answer the question I asked?
Well, I'm just curious to know that, because you make a lot of passing remarks and then expect us to just breeze past
I think
it.
that's a valid question.
Okay.
But I'm going to address the piece right now with
Please.
regards to China. And again, just so we all know, have either of you been to China?
No.
Nope.
Okay. I've been to China many times. I know. That's why I'm qualified to speak on this topic.
Why they haven't committed
Because I've done the
genocide at
research.
scale throughout
No,
history?
because I've
Why?
done the research and I've done business there,
Right.
and I've been there many times. So
Right.
that makes me a more qualified speaker.
Right.
That's just the truth. Respectfully.
Right.
That's just the truth.
Yeah.
You haven't
So-
been.
You haven't been there.
You've not been. You've not been.
Yeah.
But if you guys are being honest and reasonable, you can say, Marquett, you're right. You're more qualified.
You're
There's
not
nothing
right.
wrong with that.
No, that's wrong.
Oh, you guys know more about China than I do.
No, that's not what I'm saying. You don't.
No, I'm just trying to fit, like, where did you guys go to university?
Marquette. Let's cast.
My name
a-
is pronounced Marquett.
Okay, my apology. That wasn't
I
like
know,
that
I
wasn't
understand.
that
It's a
wasn't
black-
like I wasn't trying to like throw shade at you. And all honesty, can we throw the performative thing aside?
It's not performative. It's just the facts, and we're going to deal with the facts.
Okay,
the
but-
facts are that in this country, the United States of America, we know that credential and qualification means something. So you're not going to come here and try to act like, because you can put up a podcast, that you get to act as though you're informed when you're woefully uninformed. We're not going to
not
behave
acting
as
that
though
way.
going somewhere many times gives you no perspective. It's not the whole
getting
perspective,
angry.
but it's a
He's
lot.
getting angry.
We're not going to behave as though an American doing business with the Chinese government does not give you meaningful insights. We're also not going to behave as though someone who gets 2 degrees from top 20 universities in the world
it's the
probably
appeal to
doesn't have an
authority.
advantage. So we're just going to be real. Like, you can laugh and be goofy, but all that reveals is the insecurity of being humble enough to say, I don't know. It doesn't mean you're not smart. It just means you're not proven. That's all.
I can both say that I don't know and also say that's an appeal to authority, which is a logical fallacy. And you went to Berkeley, so you should know what that means.
No,
I don't
that's
have
not
to
a
go
logical,
somewhere to
that's
have an
not a
opinion
logical
on it.
fallacy. And authority does matter. You're misapplying that, unfortunately.
Oh, right.
So are you suggesting that in your country, the United States of America, you don't think it's highly likely that someone with 2 advanced degrees from top 20 universities is probably more informed
I'm
than
not
someone
suggesting
who's...
that.
Okay, good. So then let's deal with the generalities, because that's what white supremacists often deal in, generalities. So let's deal with the generalities, right?
Right. My bad, dude.
Yeah.
So
Let's
do
do
I
the
have
generalities.
to visit somewhere to have an opinion on it? Is that the like
No,
authoritative?
you can have an
opinion?
uninformed opinion. You've already
Okay,
done that. You
there
don't
it
have to
is.
visit to have an uninformed
So to
opinion.
be informed
But
on
what I'm
something, I
pointing
have to
out
be
you
there
is that it's very
anecdotally.
arrogant to be so strongly invested in a certain perspective of South Africa. You haven't even touched down in South Africa, much less the African continent. You know so much about China. You've never even been in China. You don't know
Never
how
said
behind
that.
we are. So, for example, the reason that Donald Trump resonated with me when he said "Make America Great Again" is
is he so
because I'm a
mad?
great patriot. And when I went to when I had an office in South Korea, I hated the fact that the South Koreans on our tax dollar were more advanced than we are. I hated the fact. I know what the state of South Korea is. I know what the state of China is.
Why are you so
I was
mad
in the
right now?
software business.
Therefore
And
what?
if you know anything, you know that government innovation, especially in weapons, often comes from private industry. Which private industry? Probably software, probably aerospace. You look like a goofy child.
Is this an interview, or is this like you're gonna throw a temper tantrum
really,
the
don't
whole
do that.
time? Is it an interview or like a temper
No,
tantrum?
you just look foolish when you're laughing because you're ignorant. You
You're
shouldn't
smart.
do that.
I'm laughing
You're the
because you're,
example
like,
of what I was
yelling.
talking about earlier. I said the quality of the white man is declining.
goodness.
That's why we're in trouble.
Marquett.
Where did you go to university, Jackson?
I'm not gonna play this game of appealing to
It's not a
authority.
game. I'm just asking you who you are.
Where did you
go to university,
I'm
Jackson?
I'm not talking about that. Marquett, the overall.
Jackson, you don't have to hide. You're an honest man. I'm merely asking you about yourself. It's an interview. Where did you go to university?
Oh, I didn't go to college. I don't think that you have to have.
Right, and Jackson, here's the issue. The reason that you want to laugh,
go to college
the
to have
reason
an
that you want to
opinion.
laugh is because you feel inferior because you didn't go to college. The truth is, it doesn't matter if you did or did not go, but the fake laughter does not
Marquett.
erase the fact that you just tried to hide. If you're being interviewed,
I'm
you know
not
you're going to be
hiding.
asked questions. So the fact that you don't want to answer a basic question, it just shows that there's something you're hiding, and it's problematic.
I'm not hiding.
Here's what I'm
I'm
saying
not
about the
hiding
white man
anything.
today. The problem is that they make fun of the blacks and say the blacks are down here. Fair enough. But the whites have fallen as well. If you look at illegitimacy rates in the white family, they're skyrocketing.
That's
You're having
true.
white single moms. You're living in the same way that the blacks are living that you like to disparage.
Well-
so all I'm saying is just be honest,
Well,
which I know is
hold
quite
on, hold on.
attached.
Okay, is
Just
this
be honest.
if this was an interview, we'd have to be given the opportunity to actually say something. You've been taking up most of the space here.
You didn't
so
even
let me-
want to answer the question I just asked you. So please
Because you didn't-
don't
you didn't-
try the deceit. It
Marquette,
does not work.
Marquette, you didn't answer the thing we said 10 minutes ago. I mean, let's be honest here.
Do you recall
The
when I was
original-
answering the question, your brother interrupted,
Goodness gracious.
and I
Marquette,
said, may I answer the
one of-
question I was asked?
one of the
and then you
things-
started cackling like a girl.
One of the things we're trying to say is that you don't have to experience something anecdotally to have a perspective on it. So I reject this appeal to authority point of view. I don't have to visit China or South Africa or wherever to have an opinion on it. You seem to be very defensive of that, though. It's kind of, I don't understand what's going on there.
It's because you think that you're using the logical fallacies correctly and you're misapplying them. And that probably is because you did not learn them in a formal setting. You see, if you learn logical fallacies in a logic class, which was actually a philosophy class at the University of California, Berkeley from an expert, you're going to learn it really well. Whereas in your case, you're misapplying
This is
it.
like black
You're
fatigue
suggesting
for
that
smart
someone who's been to China many times and done business with the government there in the software vertical doesn't have any advantage on you when speaking about China. That's just foolishness. And it's because you're arrogant that you can't concede the simple and obvious.
Okay, so does a black person have to experience slavery to know that it's wrong?
Give me one sec. I need my charger. Give me one sec.
Yeah. Charge up.
Hey there, I don't know where my charger is. Would you be kind
He's calling his white
run
slave.
through my office and see if it's in there? I think that's where it
Goodness
is. If it's
gracious.
not in the office, who knows? Okay, thank you. Bye. Okay.
Is that your white slave?
Oh, you saw the Burton plantation?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. We'll have to talk about that at some point. But anyways, I yield the floor, unless you wanted me to answer a particular question.
Well, I feel like we got trapped in the weeds there for a little bit, got a little emotional there. But all we're asking is that I have to take issue with this idea that you have to experience something anecdotally to have an opinion on it. How would you expand on
Let me
that?
ask you a question. Let me just ask you a question.
Marquette,
Let me ask you a question.
Marquette, respectfully, you've been talking for a long time. Please give us
Let
the
me ask.
opportunity to
I just said
respond.
let me ask you a question. So that means I'm going to give you the floor to talk. Isn't that what that means?
It cut out. I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
I said let me ask you a question, which means I would give you the floor to talk.
Your questions are more like diatribes, but go ahead.
Well, I noticed that you've been very sensitive throughout the entire time. You felt
I'm
as though
not.
you were
I'm not the
attacked.
one. I'm not the one screaming and yelling the whole time. But go ahead. Ask the question.
Well, I know you usually resort to the fake laugh, which I've
I'm
seen at least
emotional.
7
It's not a
times.
fake laugh. I actually am entertained. But go ahead.
I don't think you're entertained. I think you're mostly embarrassed. If someone asks you where
Not
you went
at
to
all.
university and you say, I refuse to answer that, but you're in an interview.
I
Literally,
didn't.
it's
I'm
about
a
you.
college
I
dropout.
just said I didn't go to college. Okay.
I'm not.
You've
embarrassed.
exposed me.
Yeah, but
Oh
why
no.
did you not want to answer the question?
You should do an expose on
Because
us.
I
Why
was
did you not
trying.
wanna
I was
answer the
trying to
question?
answer something you said 10 minutes ago.
So you're saying you didn't want to answer that question because you were trying to answer a question from 10 minutes ago?
Dude, we're jumping from
Kathy
we're jumping
Newman,
from
bro.
topic to topic. Like
What
I'm
you're
trying
saying
to I'm trying to
is-
answer something you're saying from 10 minutes ago. Okay, there he goes, I guess.
Oh, that's curious.
This is fun. We gotta do more of this.
Yeah, this is a good time.
Maybe he'll invite us to his house next time.
That is interesting. So you did check
I'm
him
gonna get
out.
some water, you think?
I'm good, yeah. He left.
check in
You
the
made him
area?
mad. He's
Like
crying
right
now.
before the stairs?
Yeah, I checked it too.
That's curious.
Do you have any
Check the
pets?
porch room? Oh, okay.
Do you have any pets, Marquett?
Say that again?
Do you have any pets? I feel like you have a bird.
No pets. No
Okay.
pets.
They are a lot of work, yeah.
Okay, let me see if the audience sent in some questions. I trust that they did. Shout out to Reginald. He writes, are they trying to redefine their bloodlines? But why? Could this be an effort to renew some form of racial supremacy? If so, my dear boys, you're a day late and a dollar short. In the 40s and 50s, you may have had a chance. Now we know the who, what, where, when, why, and how of your genetics.
I'm not sure what that means, but good day to you.
At that last sentence had boggled me too. Shout out to Roderick, supporting the work, came in by PayPal. May also acknowledge he came back. He writes, they're just reciting the white man's burden. That was reminiscent, definitely,
What is
of
that?
what Jackson was saying. Pardon?
What is
I
that?
don't know what that is.
You're not familiar with the concept of the white man's burden?
Nope.
Okay.
Maybe we're living it. We're just living that white man's burden. Is it like a book, or is it just like a cultural trope or something?
No, it's something that generally is taught in university.
Oh my God, dude! Enough.
No. And I don't say that.
You know
to
what
be
else is
disrespectful. It's just
feminism?
like,
All right.
there's certain
whatever.
things that are usually taught in like the sixth grade, like the book The Giver. It's like in American Standard, they'll teach you in the sixth grade. And The White Man's Burden is generally taught in university in your first year,
Sixth
just
grade.
because
Yeah, that's
it's
us.
a little off color for most people who learned about the Thanksgiving bit, which was false.
Can you read it? It's small. Read it in your Marquett voice.
Yeah, I'm going to enlarge it in a moment.
I don't know how to
Let me see.
read.
I want to get a better resource for you.
I never
guys.
learned to read. That's actually true.
Okay, here we go.
I don't know
I'm
how
going to
read. I'm
enlarge
illiterate.
this for you guys. All right, here we go. White man's burden is a phrase that refers to the 19th and early 20th century racist imperialist idea that European colonial powers had a moral obligation to civilize non-Western peoples. And so this is obviously speaking to what Jackson was referring to in terms of embedding the whites among the blacks.
Isn't that what assimilation is?
No, sir.
Okay, well, what's the difference? Because one is one way and the other is imposed by force, or what?
So assimilation is the concept that a non-native people would come among a larger group and fit into that group. Whereas colonization is actually quite the opposite. The non-native people come in and take over the other group.
But how is that
they're-
what we're
they're
doing
quite
now if we're
opposite.
already colonized? That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, wouldn't it just be assimilation at this point?
Repeat the whole sentence, please.
Well, the United States has already been colonized, so we're past that. I don't have any desire to leave or colonize anyone. So at this point, wouldn't it just be a matter of assimilation rather than some like weird, like why do we have to give it this
he wasn't
philosophical
referring
title?
to the person who sent in the PayPal was not referring to the United States. Rather, he was referring to Jackson's remarks on whites in Africa. Shout out to Reginald. He writes, "What a tangled web you weave, Saint. Let them continue to expose themselves." Gotcha. This guy. Shout out to Calvin. He writes, "Pieces Saint. Shout out to the big homie." I also acknowledge Trayvon. He writes, "Question for Jackson. If black people traveled to Europe embodied over 600 million whites, that's a lot of whites, would that be okay because blacks are just trying to spread their DNA?"
It cut out there for a sec. If blacks travel to
Sure.
Europe
I'll just reread it in
Okay,
full.
go ahead.
The gentleman writes, "If blacks traveled to Europe embodied over 600 million whites,
Embodied.
would that be okay because blacks are just trying to spread their DNA?"
Spread their DNA.
No, that wouldn't be right. I don't think that's what white people do either.
And we're not defending that either.
Yeah,
And why am I not getting any
I'm not-
questions?
I'm
Everyone
not-
everyone hates him. Give me racist questions.
I'm not interested in bodying anybody. It has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
Unless
That's-
it's in the booth.
It's an interesting question, but I mean, hypothetically, I guess it's an interesting question. If he's saying like the same idea that I'm talking about, but in reverse,
Yeah.
If black people were able to travel to Europe and civilize like native white people, that could be a good thing. Yeah, 100%.
And if they could do it, they would have already done it by now. So what are we talking about? You know what I mean? They would
Well,
have
I
already
think we
done it.
disagree on the nature of the populations because you said if they could do it, well, the Asians certainly could do it. You said they have good technology, and you said that they're intelligent, and also we know that they have the population to do it.
But
Their
intelligence
population
isn't the
dwarfs
number
the
one predictor
European
of
population,
conquest.
so why haven't they done it?
Well, intelligence I don't think is the main predictor of conquest. That's why I asked you where ambition came from. Then you brought up IQ, which is correlated to a lot of things. But it's not like is a really good artist a high IQ person necessarily? No, they're just inventive. What's that?
I'm sorry, I was just informing, so I apologize. I was just telling them that I found an alternative for electricity.
Yeah, so like a really good artist, right? Does that mean that they have a high IQ by necessity? It's like, no, they possess a characteristic that is distinct from like mental faculty and memory and whatever constitutes IQ, right? So obviously IQ is correlated with all sorts of things, like whether or not you'll end up in jail, whether or not you'll get married once or twice or have kids out of wedlock, all sorts of these things. But IQ isn't the end all be all. That's why I brought up the characteristic of ambition, not IQ. Because I would say Europeans are more ambitious.
I think your note on ambition, and you'll recall, is that that's essentially a euphemism for the ruthlessness, which is inherent to that population because they come from a place where they experience scarcity, which means they have to compete for resources, and they have to accumulate resources and be rational and do it in advance.
Well, so let's say I accept that. Let's say that I accept that. Where do we go from here? Because then we just kind of agree.
No, that's a really good question. Where do we go from here? And that was actually the question I started off with, which is like, if you had a magic wand, because when we can figure out where do we go from here, if we figure out what the outcome is, magic wand, then we can identify the steps. And that's why I wanted to get really clear on.
Well, that's why I want to know what you're asking with the magic wand, because the whole concept of absolute power corrupts absolute. You're saying, what really motivates Forrest? What would I do if I could control everything, the laws of nature, if you will, right? But like, to me, it would just be like everyone would just be happy and get along. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you could say I'm lying. Maybe you could say that that's not true or naive. But if we're saying a magical, godlike power, that's what it would be. But if you're saying in practical application, what would my response be to race relations and women and Jewish occupying our government? So it's like, we're talking about like, what would it actually look like practically versus what would a magic wand do? So that's why I kind of wanted to clarify that.
Well, what we know is going on is different than where do we need to go to. And so the magic wand idea is based on where do we need to go to.
Yeah, I understand that.
And yes, and there's different ways to get there. And like, for example, I think generally, of course, when white supremacists talk to me, I mean, I'm not in your club. So that would...
Again, I don't accept the label.
I understand. And I just want to also note for the public, I am not identifying Forrest as a white supremacist.
You're identifying him and you have it in the title, but it's fine.
No, the title was actually there like several days ago, like before we even talked. So I just want to...
Oh, you've been hunting me down for days. You've been hunting me down.
No. I just want to be honest with everyone that that title was already there. I just... Instead of taking out the extra time to create a new link, I just used the existing.
Why was it there?
So I apologize.
I
apologize if you feel like I misrepresented you guys.
That's okay, but you put it there because you knew you were going to talk about it.
No, days ago, I put it there because there's someone else I was going to talk to on this topic.
Oh, a different white supremacist. Okay.
Different set, yeah. And okay. I saw what you were saying, and I'm very sincerely interested to know what you folks really believe, because sometimes people will be on Instagram and they'll say the N-word, hard R on Twitter or IG, and they'll say it to get views, but I think some of them are maybe not rabid racist, and some of them are.
Like the women.
And I'm always curious to know, what is the pulse, because I'm not white, and you're going to get a different sense of things, and I want to know what's going on.
Well, a lot of times when people ask us questions like that, what they're asking is like, are we in the same club? Do you hate me? If it were up to you, would I just die or something like that? And the answer is no. And I mean, you can take that as honest, or you can just assume there's some sort of cloaked agenda.
I think that the answer is no for you. And I also think that your brother there, if left to his own devices, would create mass murder.
I think maybe it's just because
Okay.
I smile more. Is that what's going on? Because we don't really
Marquett,
disagree.
Marquett, one of the first things I said in the interview as the bedrock for my now transforming ideology is how do we better society for everybody? I have no interest in killing anybody. I just feel like you're very much mischaracterizing
your thesis on how that's attained,
me. Right.
which is through white leadership,
Okay.
it ignores the reality that the white leadership you speak of that you say was so good in Africa was thrown out through revolutionary warfare, which is to say people risked their lives to get the whites out of there because it was brutal and unpleasant. So your thesis that colonialism was a good thing and that there was a happy Africa under colonialism would suggest that you'd be willing to reestablish that, and that can only be reestablished through violence. And so just the fact that you're able to psychologically skip over the fact that it was thrown out lets me know that you'll probably try it again, and that would require mass murder. And I'm not saying you're a particularly bad person. I'm just saying that you
Not particularly.
are
Not
representative of
particularly bad.
the vicious white ruling class.
Okay, I didn't neglect the fact that they were overthrown, nor did I say that Africa was just happy because it was ruled by white people. It's obvious that under any sort of regime, there's going to be no shortage of human rights abuses. That's not what I'm saying. I wouldn't say that just because white people are in the area that everything's just going to magically be perfect overnight. I'm saying that overall, I think white people build a certain texture of society, and I find that texture to be more preferable. That doesn't mean that I want to go out and kill people. I don't understand how you're characterizing it that way.
And if you're telling me I'm living with a white
it's the
supremacist,
same
I'm gonna
way.
have to
I'm just
talk with the landlord.
I'm just going to respond since he spoke, and do remember what you were saying, and I'll just come right back to you. And I did give you a heads up that we'd have to extend the interview
That's fair.
because
That's
there's
fair.
for you guys. So to respond to what Jackson said, what you're saying out of your mouth is reminiscent of the nature of the white American Christian who was still able to enslave generations of people, beat them at the whipping post while being a good Christian. So the likelihood of me trusting what you're saying is very low because you still have the ambition to rule over other peoples, and you're dressing it in the idea that you're not a brutal person. I think if you ask any of the Christians who enslaved blacks if they were a bad person, none of them will say they're a bad person. Just like if you ask a promiscuous woman, is she a slur? She's gonna say absolutely not. So very rarely do people admit their faults or admit their dark side. They always want to represent themselves well, and that's no disrespect to anybody. That's just, you said that you prefer colonization, and colonization is something that is only done through violence.
Well,
I'm not hiding my dark
the only
side.
places in the world where you can still buy slaves are not white countries, and that's because white Christians abolished slaves. So is that what is that? Is that a cultural
I'll be
thing?
honest with you.
Is that
I'll be honest
evil
with you.
European DNA? What is that?
I will be honest with you, Forrest. I have been fascinated with the idea of buying some slaves just because of the sheer level of productivity I could get, right?
I get that you're
So-
joking. But I want an answer.
No, I'm not joking. I'm serious.
Okay.
So I'm serious. So I've been researching, where can you acquire slaves? And often Mauritania comes up as a place where you can acquire slaves. Of course, Libya. And this was a direct result of the Barack Obama administration with Hillary Clinton at the head of the foreign policy on Libya. And I'd say in all of those cases, it's pretty much a lie, except in Libya, there were open slave markets, which is basically an Arab country. And still in various parts of the Middle East, they don't have actual slavery, but they don't have de jure slavery, but they have de facto, I think slavery would be strong, but they treat people way worse than you'd be treated anywhere else in the world. So I think that's the closest you can get is parts of the Middle East, plus Libya, which are all essentially Arab, in some cases Muslim countries.
So why did white Christians get rid of it first?
Why did white Christians start it?
White Christians didn't start slavery. Are you serious? You think slavery
I'm
didn't
very
exist
serious, and I'll
until
answer your
Jesus got
question.
here? You think slavery
I'll
started
answer your
after
question.
Jesus
So
got
number
here?
So I'll help you.
Please.
When you say white Christians ended slavery, the truth is white Christians stopped the slavery that they were doing. So to be clear with you, if you tell me, hey, Marquett, are you not thankful that the white Christians gave you a bandage on that big wound that you had in your back, I'd say, yeah, I really
not what I'm
appreciate that.
asking.
The only thing better is if white Christians never stabbed me in the back.
That's not
that
what
would
I'm
be the only
asking.
thing better than that.
Yeah.
So I think it's very disingenuous.
No, it's not.
To suggest that white Christians are good people for stopping slavery. It's like, what about the hundreds of
It
years
would
that they
only-
enacted slavery?
it would
what
only-
about the fact
Sure.
that they started up the slave trade that they ended?
It would
Furthermore,
only-
this is worth noting, and I'm speaking from the facts, and feel free to contradict me with the words of a scholar. Dr. Mario Ariola, who's one of the foremost scholars in African studies, has written extensively, and I studied under him, and he specifically
tell.
talks about the forms of slavery you mentioned, which is forms of slavery in the continent of Africa that predated transatlantic slave trade, which was done by the white Christians. That form of slavery was radically different, far less violent. You didn't inherit your status. It was typically not on the basis of ethnicity or race. It was on the basis of being a prisoner of war. You could buy your way out, and it was nothing on the order of what the Europeans did. So comparatively, to even use the same name is probably not a good idea, and that comes from the foremost scholar on that topic.
Okay.
I yield the floor.
Okay, well, you're saying a bunch of things, but I mean, I want you to address it specifically. So I asked you.
No, I just said something that is for you to address, and I just addressed it with the words of a scholar.
Right,
and everyone can Google
but
Dr.
what you do,
Mario
you say a
Ariola.
bunch of things and then ask a question and expect me not to go back and address the whole tirade you just went on, which I'm going to do. So I asked you, why did white Christians get rid of slavery first? And basically you responded by saying, well, they started it, so they had a moral duty. So I'm not gonna say thank you.
I didn't say they had a moral duty.
You basically effectively said, I'm not going to thank someone who created it. So, and that would be a contradiction to my initial statement, had slavery been exclusive to white people, which it's not. The word slave, you're from Berkeley, comes from Slav. Slavs were enslaved first. It's not exclusive to whites. Everybody's enslaved everybody. So I don't want to do that whole sanctimonious thing. Why did white Christians make it the purpose of the law to abolish slavery before anybody else? Can you answer that specifically without citing other people? Is there an answer?
That's not true. That's not true.
So who abolished it first?
When you say it, you're referring to the slavery that white Christians created. They
I'm
stopped
saying
their own
any
slavery,
form
but
of slavery.
I'll also have you know two meaningful facts.
You're not
Number one,
answering.
while the British were stopping slavery, they were still buying the proceeds. They were still buying goods that were created by slaves, and you can actually Google and find that evidence. Is very clear. In addition to that, it's the evolution of economies. Even people who suggest that the Civil War was to end slavery, this is utter nonsense. The reason that slavery was easy to end at a certain point is because of mechanization, the cotton gin. So when you realize that you do not need huge populations of Black
true.
Africans working the cotton fields, then you stop enslaving them. Furthermore,
agree.
from an economic standpoint, you start to overproduce a particular good. You have to have a market to sell it to.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they're sending part of it abroad, but they also want a domestic market. And as much as that's the case, they needed to have more consumers, people who can spend money. And so you don't have the Black slaves working on the fields because we have the machines. We now turn them into an additional consumer class, albeit a second-class citizen, and it is the evolution of the economy. That would have never happened earlier on. It had to happen when the necessity for slavery became economically inefficient.
And how did that happen? How did it become economically
Did you
inefficient?
not understand what I just said?
Yes, I did. I want you to
Well, then
specifically
why would you
restate.
ask that?
So you're saying the Industrial Revolution essentially contributed
I
to
did
the.
not say the Industrial Revolution.
You're saying
but
it became
that's
it became
loosely an easier way to understand.
right. It became
like,
it became
for example,
more lucrative to not have slaves, basically in layman's terms. Is that kind of what you're saying? Therefore, there was nothing moral about it. It was, it makes more money if we use a machine, free the blacks. Is that what you're saying?
What is the point of your argument? Are you suggesting that like white people are good people because
No.
they stopped enslaving people?
I just asked
Like,
you
is
a
that the
question.
argument? It's bizarre.
The whole question was, why did whites abolish slavery? And you went on this whole thing about how the Civil War
And I
had
answered
nothing.
your question two
No,
separate
you went on
times.
it. Hold on.
I
Let me
would-
respond. You went on a
this
whole thing
person-
about how the Civil War wasn't about abolishing slavery, which I would
No,
agree with.
I gave you an analogy. Like I gave you an analogy of something that's the wrong assumption.
Okay, but you didn't answer my question though, really. Why did white Christians abolish slavery? The cotton gin, is that your answer?
I'll yield the floor for you to explain.
I'm asking a question.
I
I'm
just
not
answered it
educated.
twice,
I
and so
didn't go
now
to college.
now
I'm
said
trying
I'll
to
yield the floor
learn.
for you to answer the question.
I'm trying to learn. I don't know the answer. I wasn't there. But I'm asking you because you seem very certain.
You're
you seem
repeating yourself. You don't repeat yourself.
Okay.
because I'm not going to repeat myself.
Oh, because you already answered it. Okay, well, I guess, yeah, we'll leave it to the jury for review.
Well, the jury, people in the jury were saying that you guys are playing dumb.
I know what they're saying, yeah.
What other questions would you like to ask us, Marquett?
Thank you for that. Let's see.
Yeah, we do have a live stream in 15 minutes, but
Absolutely,
we're doing
absolutely.
good here. I think
Let
I'm
me
having
see
fun.
if the folks sent in any questions, and then I'll hop off. Shout out to Patrick. He writes, "You're a genius, Saint. These guys don't measure up." I also acknowledge Mark came in supporting the work via PayPal. Appreciate you, Patrick. Shout out to Charlie, writes, "Support." Now, also acknowledge Joseph, writes, "Tuition. I received the shoes yesterday. They fit perfectly. Thank you." Oh, by the way, we had a giveaway, sasmbrand.com. We sent out some athletic shoes. We actually do what we say we're going to do. And may I also acknowledge Johnny. He writes, "Tuition came in by Venmo." May I also acknowledge by PayPal. Shout out to Reginald. He writes, "Whites with this mentality must be eradicated for the world to be a better place." God damn it.
Wow, I would never say anything like that. That's crazy.
Wow.
I don't think you would say that. I don't think you would say
Black's at it again.
that. Jeffrey writes, "Interesting. When faced with being intellectually outmatched, they default to sarcasm to shield their embarrassment."
Yeah, it was more of like an
I also
interrupting.
acknowledge Evan writes, "Peace to the Saints."
Okay.
I was just going to carry on real quick.
Yeah.
He writes, "I would like to ask the two men you are interviewing a question." Okay, so he sent it via email.
Finally, a question for me. I feel left out.
Right, the two men, yes.
It's because he looks more Germanic. They're like, he's the bad one.
The young man who said he was going to send a question, I literally don't see it, and these gentlemen have to go. So I don't see your question. Just please resend it right now. I just want to ask one quick, I don't even want to say quick. I don't want to lie.
You're good.
Who knows? It's up to you guys. But we'll start with whichever one of you wants to start. If there was one thing in Black culture, this is a two-part question. I'll just give you the first part, let each person answer, and I'll give the second part. If there's one thing in Black culture that you could fix, you just pick one thing, what would you fix?
I think a lot of people would agree fatherlessness is a pretty big problem. You know, having the foundation of the masculine figure in the home is one of the most important things for any flourishing community. You know, it starts in the family and then it goes from there. And I think it's pretty much inarguable. You know, Thomas Sowell, people like this have been talking about removing the father figure and the absolutely catastrophic effects that's had on the Black community. So I think if you guys fix that, you'd see a lot of improvement, honestly.
How about some gratitude? I would appreciate a little bit of gratitude because, I mean, Blacks, and granted, you know, someone like Marquett, if we're just being honest, you're educated, you're successful. I don't know your whole business, but I suspect you're doing well for yourself financially. I know you're a tech guy. You are what most would consider an exception by global standards, let alone your specific racial group. You know, so you don't really represent the average Black man. The feeling that I get from the average Black man is sort of a lack of gratitude because they do live in the West. And when I wake up in the morning and I look around and I see all the things that I have and all the things that my ancestors fought and died for, I have a sense of gratitude. And I don't take claim to those things as if I'm responsible, but I have a sense of pride in that I'm the offspring of that. And I have a sense of duty to kind of upkeep that. And people come here all the time, and it's not just Black people. People immigrate from other countries that are just torn to hell. And I'm pro-Mexican. I'm more proud to be Mexican than American. And it's like, dude, you wouldn't, like, we're speaking English right now. So a little bit of gratitude, I think, is due. And I think a lot of white people would appreciate that. But I think more than anything, we can still have kind of like a cordial back and forth dialogue. But I mean, you feel it just as much as we do, Marquett, which is why you invited me and my brother here, is that you feel the tensions rising. And I think maybe there's an effort to establish some diplomacy and kind of maybe the leaders of the movement sort of control the conversation. But again, I don't know if things are going to just fizzle out from here. And I don't know what the clear answer is.
No, I don't think so. They're definitely not going to. When you say fizzle out, you're talking about with the white movement?
Well, with anything, with like Black crime and white racists and all this, is it just going to go away?
Can I ask you a small follow-up on that one?
Sure.
On the gratitude piece?
Sure.
Do you believe that Blacks should have, and I'm just for simplicity, I'm just say foundational Black Americans, and then we'll just assume like we're talking about like white Americans.
Right.
Do you think that Blacks should have the same amount of gratitude as white Americans or more gratitude than white Americans?
Minimum the same amount.
What do you think is appropriate?
If
Like,
I was
it
black, I would like to think, I mean, I wouldn't think the same way, would I? But I would like to think I would have more because, again, you were brought here against your will, and that's not anyone's fault but the people who brought you here.
Now I'm going to hit you guys with my second question.
Okay.
Who answered first the first time?
I did.
It's Jackson, right? Okay, cool. Then I'll let you answer first this time.
Sure.
If there was one thing you could improve in white culture, what would you improve?
That's a good one because you made the point earlier that we've fallen, and I of course agree with that. I would say self-interest in the group because we're the only group of people, I mean, by and large, that go out of their ways to meet every other group where they're at and make egalitarianism the purpose of, I guess, just like sociological mores and also like the purpose of the law with DEI and all those things. I think we need to start collectivizing and caring about ourselves. And I don't think it has to be a hateful thing. I think no one needs to commit violence against other people. But as soon as white people get up and start caring about ourselves and taking our own interests like the blacks do, like the Jews do, I mean, it's going to be, that's all we'll need to do, really.
If I could improve one thing with white people, I would say pride. We are the best. It's time to start acting like it.
There it is. Send $20 to Marquett so you can call him a racist. So he can buy a nice suit.
Now racist wouldn't be accurate because
Right,
racist can describe a lot of things.
Right.
White supremacists.
Ooh. I get my own category.
Wait, can I be one too? That sounds pretty cool.
Well, I think that, well, here's the challenge. So like, for example, you were saying it doesn't have to be hateful. I think what'll happen is if you're, say you're in the group, you and your brother, you're in the, whatever the group turns out to be, and it becomes hateful or it becomes violent, I think that you're just going to go along with it. Doesn't mean that you're necessarily like like significantly worse person than anybody else. It's really the fact of the matter. You mentioned self-interest. It wouldn't be in your self-interest to go against violence if people say, hey, we're gonna eliminate the blacks, we're gonna take out the Asians, the Arabs, and everyone who's not white in America, bloodbath. I don't think you would try to stop anyone, is what I'm saying.
Well, the main thing to remember here is you do not have love without hate.
Fair enough. The man is a philosopher. Hey, and one thing I want everyone watching to know is that I plan to stay in contact with these gentlemen. I have no like personal ill will. I think that Forrest said he's seen some of my content before, so you know I wall out. But
I watched you
it doesn't mean
demolish
that I
Adam
hate you guys.
22.
Pardon?
I watched you demolish Adam 22, which I actually took a little bit of glee in, by the way. So I'll have you know.
You know, one thing I'll say before we get off, and just so that I can make sure that we all get banned.
Yeah.
One thing I truly believe in is that a portion of the black and white population actually does need to be eradicated, which is to say that, you know, we have some ones, I hate to name specific names because I might catch a case, but we have some ones that are just too down bad. And we just need to eradicate them because they can't be re-educated.
So who's
And
calling for violence here, Marquett?
And I think there's a percentage of the whites that are too far down, and they also need to be eradicated. And from there, we can spring something worthwhile.
Well, those are your words, not ours, but I hear you.
Safe to say the white men aren't the ones calling for violence here. Good to know that.
Well, do you want to join in? You don't want to join in?
Yeah, I don't want to eradicate anybody. As I said before, I want a
No
better
one at all.
society.
Okay, he's paying for trips back to Africa, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep,
He's paying
that's
for trips.
right.
Hey guys, I appreciate you.
Hit my PayPal, boys.
I appreciate you guys coming in. Shout out to Calvin. He writes, "Can you ask them about their take on IQ and temperament?" If you guys got to go, just say you got to go. I don't want to.
Honestly, this is. I mean, look, we're supposed to do.
Little time.
We got like 7 minutes. IQ and temperament, dude, I don't know. Again, I will defer to people who actually study this stuff because
Jared Taylor.
I have somewhat of a bit of humility despite what Marquette might think, but I don't know everything. I take some interest in psychology. IQ matters objectively, and I can say that as someone with an average IQ. Someone who has an IQ of 140, they're going to mog me, right? They just are, okay? But in terms of temperament, I guess that's separate because like there's the big 5 and it's openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. I don't know if there's a correlation between any of them. I notice that the higher the IQ, the less social people become. like super mega high IQ Nikola Tesla type people, they become very antisocial. So there's probably some sort of thing. Maybe that has to
Diminishing
do with the fact
returns.
that they don't fit in because they're just different. I don't know, but that's kind of a vague question. But I'm sure,
Okay.
yeah, it's interesting.
I'm gonna just go on to the next one, just so I make sure everyone can get at least one of your responses.
Sure.
Mitchell, who just side note is white. I'm not saying that based on his name. I'm saying that because I actually know this person.
Okay.
He writes, "These white supremacists have white shame. What a world we are in." He thinks that you guys need to go harder. So.
Wait, what?
He
What is
comes
he?
right-
I don't understand. Is he a
He
white
said, "You guys
supremacist?
are white supremacists, but you have white shame." He thinks you need to be more dedicated to the cause.
Oh, okay.
He comes back. He writes, "Using hip hop to spread your word is to be a black woman in a white woman's hair chanting Black Power. Need I say more?"
Yeah,
I'm
but
gonna
what?
read that again. Because he says,
Yeah.
"Using hip hop to spread your word is to be a black woman with a white woman's hair."
Yeah, I get it.
Oh, okay, I get it.
The
Okay,
neo-Nazis
wow,
try to
okay.
say that to us all the time. It's just nonsense.
Well, I think that I think anybody should be allowed to participate in another culture. I mean, Tiger Woods, like when you think of like golf, for example, you think of white people. Let's be real, with like the shorts and the polos.
Especially swimming and hockey.
Yeah, Tiger Woods
You
dominated.
didn't ask me.
Tiger Woods dominated. He's a black
bro's
guy,
going hard.
but if he's a good golfer, he's a good golfer. I think the culture thing is like if you care about the art form, that supersedes everything else.
And the reality is the true most based position is an actual colorblind meritocracy. But the issue is that nature interferes with that, and it can never happen because people take their self-interest and their group interest first, which is why as a reaction to the culture, this is why we care about this. I went 28 years never even being political. Now I'm interested in it because white people are under attack. So it's really reactionary rather than like something motivated by like some trauma or whatever. I don't know what people think, but that's what I would say to that.
Okay.
Hey, Mark, are we going to be able to talk after the live ends, or it's just going to like end altogether?
You're saying like you and I without the audience?
Yeah,
If you like, yeah, absolutely.
I would like that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll read these out for you. Evan writes, "I would like to ask why racial unity is more important than religious unity." Oh, we didn't even touch on religion. Okay.
I would say that religion's downstream from race.
I agree with you. Would you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, we went to a Roman Catholic church. We go to church every Sunday. I'm more of a secular person, but I do go to church because I participate in the culture. I pray to Jesus, all that stuff. And I would say largely I believe in Jesus, but I do believe that everything like I said earlier, like culture and music is downstream from the people who it emerges from. So like you go to like a Roman Catholic church and it looks like you're in like New Mexico or something like that. It's got that very like Hispanic kind of, I don't know if I'm like Mediterranean, right? You know what I'm saying? It's got that like Mediterranean.
No comment.
Okay, well maybe I'm totally off base, but again, the point is that it's distinct from if you go to like an Orthodox church, right? So again, I'm not a Berkeley genius, but you get what I'm trying to say.
Two quick questions.
So the
One-
reason why though the foundational religion is the same. It's the same. It's Jesus. It's God, right? But the way that it expresses itself, the little things that they do they take communion here? Do they wear robes? Those are downstream from like the culture of the people who it manifests out of, I think. So that's what I would say.
Okay. Two quick questions. One, what race is Jesus, or what race would Jesus be categorized into? Negroid, Caucasoid, Mongoloid?
I think that Jesus is an abstraction. I think he existed, and I think he was actually Middle Eastern. I think he was from Galilee, right? Whatever those people are, the actual real Jews. But I would say how he exists in our memories and our actions is an abstraction, not as what he was in a biological sense. So he's
about
not
you,
really
Jackson?
a man. He's not a person. He's God, right? Because that's the whole thing.
Okay.
Interesting.
Jackson?
Well, you might take this as me trying to take the politician route, but I actually did.
Oh, damn it. Okay, skip it
Oh,
then.
no.
Skip it then.
It's an
Shout
honest.
to Carter.
It's an
He
honest
writes,
answer.
"We'll start
Come
what's
on,
that?
Marquett. Let me answer the question.
Okay, I thought you were just like, "Hey, bro, don't ask me this." All right, go ahead.
No. I actually want to answer. I'm saying you
Okay, go ahead.
might interpret it that way. I'm just saying that I think that you could say Jesus Christ is an abstraction, but as far as like the racial categorization, I think that if you look at Christian religion as being a universalist doctrine, that would sort of mean that Jesus Christ encompasses all races and all ethnicities and all nationalities. He's sort of like an amalgamation of all people as God represented in human form. That's sort of like the best way to look at it if you think being a Christian is about being a universalist. So I think that's an idea that I kind of toy with. I don't know if that's true literally. Some people say Jesus was from Galilee. Some people say he was Palestinian. I honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I know
Okay.
that he's an
No,
extremely
shit. Well,
important figure, though.
you definitely don't know. None of us
Yeah.
know for sure. Although I'm pretty sure I saw him at a Lakers game. But anyway, shout out to Carter. He writes, "Peace to the Saints. We'll start supporting soon on Stripe." Okay, absolutely. Appreciate you. We also acknowledge Patrick. He writes, "Under this current regime, with the current population and the majority ethnic group in the government, who is attacking them? Each need to answer separately." This man is making demand.
Who is attacking white people, he's saying?
I'll let you go first, Jackson.
Okay.
I believe
Is
that's
the question, who do I think is attacking me as a white person?
I believe that's the question. Because someone said whites are under attack. And so I think he's asking, well, who is it and how is it?
Well, I believe that there is a sort of multiracial participation in what people call great replacement. Some people would refer to it as like a conspiracy theory, but I see it as something that's happening literally in real time. There is a literal demographic change happening, and it's happening at an exponential rate. You know, about 80 years ago or so, white people were approximately 33% of the population. Now there's like 6% of the population of white people. So I think you could argue that white people are being...
Wait, can you repeat that?
The numbers?
Can you repeat from, you said something years ago. Yeah, can you start from there?
So like the post-World War II era, the rough stat is that white people were about 33% of the global population. And now they're roughly, I see numbers like 7, 8, 9, even 12, but the lowest number I've seen is 6. So we could say like a range of 6 to 12%. A lot of that demographic change has to do with the rapid introduction of mass migration into all of the Western and white European countries. So I would describe that as a form of ethnic cleansing, frankly. I think that white people are being sort of rooted out in the societies that our forefathers created. I would also argue that over the past like 10 or 20 years or so, and some people would say that this is a product of like woke culture, but white people sort of being demoralized by the media and movies and entertainment as always being the evil, oppressive one. I think that there's been a very big misrepresentation of white people throughout history through recent media and the Western world, is how I would say.
He's smirking.
I mean, okay. Oh, sorry.
I prefer the term smiling or grinning.
You smirk, dude. I saw you smirk.
Was it smirk? I didn't
was a
see it. So
smirk.
I'm going to take your word for it because I didn't see it.
All right.
But
Well,
I'll
let
respond to
him
that real
answer.
quick. So there's a couple pieces.
That's fine, that's
Number
fine.
one, the gentleman said, basically, you're saying you're being attacked in America. Trump's in office. White people are the majority. Who's attacking you and how are they attacking you? So then you gave your answer. And you started off mentioning the percentages of the planet that are white, like the percentage of humankind on the planet Earth which is white. And you said it's declining. You also use the term replacement theory, which I think is a fascinating term. I think the nomenclature is really bad because whites aren't being replaced. They may be reducing in numerical superiority in certain places, and that's largely, in my opinion, I think in part because of feminism. But you guys are having fewer children than you used to. In fact, most populations in developed countries are having fewer children. And that's not an attack. That's like something that's well within your control. That's number one. Then you mentioned so that dispels the piece about the population percentage because whites have not been killed in mass except by other whites. That's the only time whites get killed in mass is when whites are killing
Except
each
for
other,
Jews.
which is
Jews
what
mass
World War
killed
II
whites.
was. Pardon?
Jews mass killed whites. It's the biggest genocide
Again,
ever. But
Jews
you
are
don't
but
think Jews
fair
are
enough.
white. So
We'll disagree on that one.
Yeah.
Then the second piece is you described the decline in white population globally as ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing is a term that describes people being wiped out through violence, and that has not happened to whites except when whites are murdering each other, which is not ethnic cleansing. In those cases, it was war. Like they've not really suffered any genocide by whites themselves, unless you want to name a genocide that whites committed on each other. Then the third piece is you talked about the immigration policy. I agree with you here. I think the immigration policy has been terrible for a variety of reasons, but this has been occurring in countries that are majority white. The majority of the population is white, the majority of the voters are white thereby, and the majority of the republic, meaning the agents representing you in the republic, are white. So whites have created the poor policy that you're speaking of. So that would be whites attacking whites again.
The main distinction
Then
here
the
is that
last
you
piece-
consider Jews.
I'll yield the floor when I finish.
Yeah.
Then the last piece is you talk about the immigration, and I agree. Like I understand not wanting mass immigration from other countries. However, like you had spoke to colonialism before, similar to colonialism, when you engage in interventionism or you bomb other people's country, like Yemen, Syria, Afghanistan, Libya, Iraq, Vietnam. I could go on literally the whole show. When you destroy their country, then they have to leave to get roads, working water systems, hospitals, all these things. Your ruling class has actually created the situation that causes the mass immigration. And I think that only maybe countries like Sweden should really complain, because maybe they're not involved, but probably they are through NATO. Anyways, that's my response to what you just said. I think they might have more questions for you guys. Did you have like a quick note on that?
We can't. I mean, the whole white replacement thing, it would take us an hour. Maybe we could do it another time. We have to get to a live stream here. I just posted on my story. We said 8:30. We pushed it, so we do want to go to.
You did. They're being honest with that. I'm going to end this one right now. Check these guys out at FroJax on YouTube.
God bless.
As well, is it FroJax on Instagram?
Instagram, FroJax _ FROJX _, and then YouTube, FroJax Official. That'll be the best place to find us. Yeah, which I'm sure your fans will come and spread lots of love to our channel.
My fans are pretty civil. I mean, they might not agree, but they're not going to troll you guys or be hateful to you.
Well, they want to eradicate us, so I don't know.
Pardon?
They seem to want to eradicate us.
Oh, that was that one guy.
Oh,
I also think that one guy might have been white too. If anyone DMs me and asks for your channel, I will definitely forward it along. I'm going to shut out this live stream unless you guys want to announce anything else or promote anything else.
I think that sums it up. We appreciate your time. You've been gracious with your time, and I hope everybody enjoyed listening to us in our evil European.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
And by the way, for the folks watching, I do want to encourage all of you guys. I'm creating a show called Burton Plantation. It's on episode 2. You're going to absolutely love it. Whether you're a racist and anti-racist, you're going to love it. You're probably going to be offended no matter what race you are. I promise you that. Just type in Burton Plantation 2 into YouTube, or just type in Marquett for Women, the YouTube channel, and check it out. It's on there. Highly recommend it. Please take a look, share it, and if you can't support it, I finance the whole thing myself. All right, we're out of here. Check the gentlemen out. If you need their info because you can't find it, send me a DM. My team will get back to you with it. Until next time.
God bless.
God bless.